offensive by some, and I'm not about controversy on this channel. Anyway, so back to that argument. It's almost an ontological argument where the aspiration is for it to be true by definition. I am a straight man. Part of being a straight man is that you're attracted to women, therefore anyone I'm attracted to must be a woman. Now, there are actually lots of issues with that argument, and I will explore some of them here, and hopefully we'll explore some of them next week. But there is a pretty easy response you might already be thinking. That's not how it works. If you're a biological male and you are attracted to other biological males, then if you call yourself straight, that doesn't make those biological males women. It just means that you, despite what you're saying, are in fact gay. So that's a pretty easy solution, right? If you're attracted to a post-op male who looks like this, then you are not straight. You are obviously, clearly gay, or at least bisexual. But doesn't that sound kind of silly as something to say? I mean, it's certainly a silly enough thing to say that I, with my post-ironic sense of humor, have made fun of that position, even though you might think it would be the position I hold to. One time, a post-op that I followed on Twitter posted a video about getting new implants, and the video was very cleavage centered, and I sent the video to a friend of mine and said, ugh, I hate seeing this gay stuff on my timeline. And in saying that, I was kind of making fun of my own position, because a video all about big boobs is obviously going to appeal much more to straight men than it is to gay men. You know, I think we actually do just have to acknowledge that sexuality is kind of complicated, and saying, well, if this sexual content or sexual attraction is centered around men and experienced by men, it's gay, is kind of simplistic. So in that spirit, I'm literally going to spend this entire video talking about the complexity of sexuality, because that's what I feel like doing. Now, I will say that I believe I am presenting here the typical straight male sexuality. I am a straight man, and I don't think anything I'm saying here is particular to me unless I explicitly identify it as such. And the fact that's going to be quite rare means I can avoid this video being uncomfortably self-referential. Like, I'm just a pretty analytic guy, and I've spent a good amount of time hanging out with dudes and bros, and I think I've worked out pretty much what it is that makes men tick. Honestly, I don't think I could even make this video if it was just about me, because when I try to think about all of my opinions on this, like I say, it's complicated, and I find myself stumbling over my own subjectivity. I've been asked if I'm a tits man or an arse man before, and descended into a full-on existential crisis, you know? What does that even mean? Isn't sexuality kind of holistic? How am I supposed to regard those two things as if they're in competition with each other? And I still just don't know. It's like my fellow Michael from Vsauce says.
Are you a tits man or an ass man? I ask myself that every day.
So yeah, this video isn't really about me, but still, there's one thing that can't be ignored. We've all heard the classic joke. A radical feminist is making a criticism of autogynephilia and brings up the relevance of sissy hypnoporn in all this, and then all the trans activists get to make fun of the fact that presumably this radical feminist must have sought out such content in order to be making this point. As such, I'm sure people will try to argue it's a bit sus that I even have any sort of frame of reference to be making any of these comments in the first place. So first of all, I will just say that I've been on 4chan before. I'm not gay, but I have been to some very sad corners of the internet, and there's some stuff you can see there that really changes a man. Also, sometimes, as you might have already picked up, I will follow trans-identified people on Twitter because I expect to see them saying stuff related to the trans debate, only to find out that in addition to that, they also post some very sexual things. And indeed, a lot of these people, the reason I follow them is because they present themselves kind of as on my side. Maybe the fact they're so full on in their exhibitionism means they're not really offended when I make some of the criticisms that I do, because they're like, actually, you know what, that's pretty much right. And as such, there was actually a point where I found myself participating in a group chat that was filled overwhelmingly with post-ops because one of the people there actually knew of my content and liked the fact that I was criticizing the vapid postmodernists. Anyway, I think that's enough background. I am aware of the double bind I'm in, where the more time that I spend insisting that my interest in this topic is innocent and almost entirely academic, the more it might just seem like I'm being defensive. So as such, I guess really the question here is, could you possibly, in any universe, be attracted to someone who you recognize is not a woman, and yet still call yourself a straight man? Well, one of the big issues here is, what does it even mean to be attracted to someone? I mean, there's lots of men who I can recognize are attractive, even in a kind of sexual way. I recently, finally, finished Supernatural, and even after having to stare at him for 15 bloated seasons, I'm still resolute in my belief that Jensen Ackles could absolutely get it. But, you know, that's not gay. That's just me appreciating the objective attractiveness of another man. Even though he causes feelings of deep, intense desire within me, and I want to, and 100% would, have hot, nasty sex with him if given the opportunity, that's not me being gay, because at the end of the day, I'm just a dude appreciating the hotness of another dude. The point is, it sounds very absolute to say, if you're a man and you're attracted to other men, then you're gay. But actually, the line between just recognizing that a guy is attractive, maybe even sexually attractive, and actually feeling that sexual attraction yourself is a line that's kind of blurred. So you could say, well, okay, it's not really about just feeling a sense of attraction. Obviously, it's about being compelled to have sex with that person. If you actually have sex with them, I mean, obviously then you're clearly gay. But aren't there other reasons a man could have sex with a man that aren't gay? Like, if nothing else, what about money? I mean, it's the age-old question. What if Bill Gates offered you $1 billion to give him a blowjob? If you're a man and you take him up on that offer, are you gay? The main reason to not do it is if you're super defensive of your identity as a gay man, and the idea of doing something gay, even if you're not doing it because you yourself are gay, is so off limits to you that you wouldn't even do it for a huge sum of money. But I personally am pretty comfortable with my heterosexuality, and I don't feel the need to obsessively defend its integrity, in case you can't tell by the video so far.
I mean, I'm not all in your face with my heterosexuality. No you are not.
And you know, the idea of not only being able to buy a house with no mortgage, but being able to buy a nice house and then travel the world and then still having money left over for almost anything else I could want to do, that's kind of appealing. I think you'd be hard pushed to argue that if I did give Bill Gates a blowjob, I'm not only gay, but one of probably the very few gay people who's specifically attracted to Bill Gates, rather than it just being because he's offered me a whole bunch of money. Now would be a good time to mention that I'm not trying to describe any sort of sexuality here apart from heterosexual male sexuality, but this would also be a good time to point out that there is an entire industry where women are routinely paid to pretend to be lesbian in front of a camera. So this would suggest that there are at least a considerable number of women who, despite probably considering themselves to be straight, are prepared to routinely engage in same-sex activity as part of what they consider to be their job. I don't want to suggest that this necessarily means that female sexuality is reliably more fluid than male sexuality, but I will say when you consider the popularity of political lesbianism within radical feminism, it does seem like the belief that women can just choose to become lesbians is one of the very rare areas where radical feminism and the porn industry appear to be in complete agreement. Anyway, the point is that if you have sex with another man, that must necessarily automatically mean that you as a man are gay doesn't entirely work, because there might be other reasons why a man has sex with another man not to do with sexuality. Like, obviously we just mentioned money, but what about power and intimidation? It's obviously a horrible reality, but we know for a fact that in prison, same-sex sexual activity is a way that a strict hierarchy based on intimidation is imposed, and that has really nothing to do with sexual attraction. Now, you might say that none of this counts because it's not really about enjoying the sexual aspect of it. But, well, then we kind of have to ask the question, are people attracted to their hands? Because clearly a lot of people are able to enjoy physical stimulation without paying too much regard, and certainly not having any particular positive feelings towards where that physical stimulation is coming from. So while this absolutely should not be how you treat other human beings, it's possible you might have and enjoy a sexual experience and get a lot of physical gratification from it, while having no real regard for the person who's doing it, and as such, it doesn't suggest anything about your feelings towards them. All this is to say, sexuality just isn't this simple thing where you can say, well, you had a vague sense of sexual attraction, or you even had sex with this person, or even you had sex with this person and enjoyed it, and therefore that tells us what your sexuality is. And all of this is before getting into the fact that historically, sexuality was incredibly fluid. In Rome, no one had this idea that you were gay if you were a man who had sex with men. All that mattered to them was whether you were the submissive person in the sexual encounter or the dominant one. So to put things in contemporary terms, there's a big difference between being a top or a bottom, a giver or a receiver. Now would be a good time to mention I actually did some research for this video, some thorough boning up, and I came across this article in the Journal of Sex Research called Men Sexually Interested in Trans Women, gendered embodiment, and the construction of sexual design. This paper didn't really say anything that I hadn't already been willing to pretty much take for granted anyway, but it is nice to have an academic source to back up some of what I'm saying. Also, whenever I mention doing extra research, I'm always inclined to mention my Patreon because, of course, having a reliable source of income is a great way to guarantee that I'll be able to reliably dedicate more time to these videos, and that means being able to do research in the background. You know, if I was earning a full-time living wage from this, I would be able to dedicate a full-time working week to each video, which would give me a lot more time for research. So with that said, a huge thank you to those who support what I'm doing by giving on Patreon. You're all very appreciated. So I read this article, and here are some relevant quotes. Among the straight men, the trans woman's penis was not mentioned as an attraction and was apparently ignored. Because the bisexual man's attraction did include the penis, they often sought to incorporate it into their sexual activity with a trans woman. So me personally, as a straight man, whenever I even conceive of the idea of engaging in same-sex activity, I always would imagine it as just being me doing what I would do with a woman, but with a man instead. Now, yes, you could still say that's gay. I mean, it is a man having sex with another man, and that is quite gay. However, I think you'd be hard-pushed to argue that it isn't quite a bit more gay if I were instead doing something with a man that I couldn't possibly do with a woman, like sucking her penis. See, for me personally, the vague idea of having sex with a so-called trans woman is not something that immediately makes me think gay with big, loud, aggressive, blaring gay sirens in my head. Even if we're talking about post-ops who still have a penis, who I guess maybe I should call semi-ops, so to indicate that they have had lots of feminizing surgery that makes them appear more like a biological female, but they still have a penis. If someone ran up to me and just said, "Hey, Michael, imagine having sex with a woman with a penis," the first thing I would imagine is just me having sex with a woman and, oh look, there's a penis there. And that's pretty much consistent with what the quote from the article I already mentioned was saying. But if instead you are a man who's thinking, oh, there's going to be a penis involved, well, sign me up, and you're even thinking about interacting with that in a sexual way, that is something that makes big, loud, aggressive, blaring gay sirens go off in my head. See, this is another example where sexuality is kind of complicated because in theory, enjoying the experience of being penetrated and being attracted to men are two unrelated things. One's a physical sensation, another one's about who you're attracted to. I mean, apparently all gay men have a G-spot in their butt, so I guess we'd all like to be penetrated, whether we're attracted to the sex that's physically equipped to do that or not. But if I said that actually enjoying the idea of engaging with a penis and being penetrated by it is obviously more gay than just having sex with someone who happens to have a penis but you want nothing to do with it, well, you know, strap-ons exist. So that would inescapably suggest that a biological male who enjoys being pegged by a biological female is more gay than a biological male who's content to have sex with a semi-op. Which I realize is crazy, but it's also kind of true, isn't it? I mean, if you asked me which one of those two things would be more gay for a man to do, the one involving the biological female or the one involving the biological male, I'd say the former. It's unironically a case of you had sex with a woman, that is so gay. I mean, this is approaching the question that the philosopher of our time, Andrew Tate, once asked, right? Is it more gay to have sex with a biological female who looks like Hulk Hogan or a biological male who looks like Megan Fox? Even if we're assuming a semi-op scenario where Hulk Hogan has a vagina and Megan Fox has a penis, which one's gayer?
So you're thinking, well, I don't want to be gay, so I just clicked the girl, the number one, did it? You're gonna fuck Hulk Hogan? Okay, there's a pussy, but he's got mustache and muscles and shit. He's all hairy, big dude, 6'5". It's pretty gay to me. That sounds pretty gay. I don't care if it's a pussy. That is gay. Whereas Megan Fox, okay, he's got a dick, but maybe you can like scoot it out the way. I'm still Megan Fox.
It all seems so simple, didn't it? I mean, it's just, if you're a man and you have sex with a man, you're gay. But then you like just think about it for a little while and you're like, suddenly, I'm feeling like it's gay to have sex with women. So this is definitely going to be the most entertaining part of the video, where I just list off a load of reasons why maybe a straight man could be into chicks with dicks. Starting with number one, it's taboo. I mean, this one's pretty obvious, right? If you know anything about porn memes, you'll know there's often a weird incestuous thing going on. Like, for example, that SNL skit where Emma Stone plays someone whose husband cheats on her with her godson.
Jared, what are you doing? Not with my godson.
I mean, it's her godson, so it's not technically her son, but still, why even have the relationship of son in there at all? And obviously, there's this really weird thing you often see with step siblings, which I don't really understand at all, but I would assume the main reason why people are into that is because it's taboo. Quite rightly taboo, in my humble submission. I've also always assumed this is one of the reasons why lesbianism and interracial relationships are so often depicted in adult entertainment, because there is a taboo around that. I mean, interracial relationships were illegal in many parts of the United States and other parts of the Western world until within living memory. So to me, that kind of implies that all of that stuff is considered taboo, and that's why it's appealing to a lot of people, because if something's taboo, then it feels forbidden and exciting and sexy. Well, there's a lot of taboo around trans identity right now. It's certainly a hot button political issue that's causing a lot of controversy. So if people are getting really mad about this, then maybe that suggests it's controversial and dangerous and exciting. And obviously, if you're a biological male, you don't really have to worry about danger in a sexual context in the same way that a biological female might have to. So I imagine that's the number one reason why someone might be specifically into the idea of dating or having sex with a so-called trans woman in a fetishistic way, because of that taboo. Now, despite me saying that I don't relate to that, there is something adjacent to it, which I kind of do understand in that it's sort of specific to me. And this is that, as a critic of trans ideology, the idea that a trans person would be attracted to me is, I must admit, a massive ego boost. It's why I think a lot of white nationalists secretly fantasize about dating non-white women, because again, the implication there is quite complimentary. This guy positions himself politically in opposition to me, but I just can't help but be attracted to him, and clearly that shows that he must just be super hot. I recently made a video criticizing Islam, and as it happens, I used to actually date a Muslim woman, and when I was at secondary school, there was this Muslim girl who like wore a headscarf and everything, and she had a quite well-known crush on me. Like, a lot of people were aware that she had this crush on me. Unfortunately for her, it wasn't reciprocated. Now, all of that was before I had any real intellectual opinions on Islam, but I must admit, having had both those experiences of criticizing Islam and also having dated a Muslim, occasionally those two experiences will converge, and I'll imagine a Muslim saying, oh, you know, this infidel, he's really terrible about our religion, but gosh darn it, he's so cute. And I must admit, that notion is an ego boost. The ego boost I need to get me through the day is an imagined Muslim woman watching one of my videos, well, the only video I've made criticizing Islam, and going, he's just so cute though. And occasionally, as I've already mentioned, I will get messages from trans-identified individuals saying, just so you know, I'm trans, but I agree with you because you're right to criticize the bad parts of trans ideology. Now, I'm not so conceited to suggest that every single one of these people has reached out to me because they're secretly in love with me, but I am conceited enough to suggest that maybe that's been the case at least once. Now, insofar as my response to that notion is nice, that makes me feel like a real alpha that people are thinking that I'm super hot, you could say that that positive sentiment, in some sense, constitutes a kind of reciprocation of that enthusiasm. And I do think this can be generalized to the general principle that generally, when we're aware that someone's attracted to us, that will often make us feel just a little bit attracted to them too. When I get a comment from a gay guy who's like, Casey, I wish he was called Gacy, then we could be gay together and make sweet, tender, yet carnal love, I will admit, when I read that comment, I do feel just a tiny bit more gay at the end of it than I did before I read it. It's like gravity. If you drop a penny on the ground, technically, the penny pulls the earth towards it with just as much force as the earth is exerting on the penny. It's just that the earth is a lot bigger, so that force is a lot less significant to it. In this analogy, my heterosexuality would be the earth, and the penny would be compliments from gay guys. But very relevant to all of this is that so-called trans women and straight guys are going to be very compatible sexually because they both have the sexuality of a dude. They say that men think about sex every 7 seconds, and while that's definitely an exaggeration with the exception of me as I'm recording this video, I think it's fair to say that men do think about sex a lot more than your typical woman does. Which is, by the way, one reason why I'm very specifically just talking about men in this video and not making any comment on women, because one reason why men might be more likely to be attracted to post-ops and semi-ops is because men in general are attracted to like 80% of women and aren't that fussy. Anyway, the point is that if even the average female is much less into sex than the average male, then I imagine if you are a man in a relationship where there is a unique sense of sexual incompatibility, the idea of instead having sex with a dude must get increasingly more appealing. I mean, as I already said, I spent some time on a transgender group chat on Twitter, and the amount of sex they spoke about having was frankly insane. Also, maybe it's kind of counterintuitive, but I think having sex with what is in fact actually a feminized male will make a lot of dudes feel way more alpha and masculine. To again quote from the study I read, they make you think you have a big cock even when you don't. My theory is that a lot of it has to do with evolutionary psychology. If you are a man, you are in competition with other men. So the idea of another man choosing to feminize himself is kind of just giving you the dub. So while I don't think anyone would consciously think of it in those terms, I think that could explain the sentiment of, oh, here's a biological male who's feminized himself such that he's no longer in competition with me as far as the evolutionary race is concerned, so that's actually kind of appealing to me. Anyway, that whole evolutionary psychology thing got me thinking of another reason why men might prefer having sex with semi-ops. Because really, as we all know, every man wants to be Genghis Khan. That's just the truth. Every man wants to be a great conqueror who spreads his seed far and wide. I was born to conquer Eurasia, but I am forced to make videos on YouTube about why having sex with men isn't actually gay. I think that's why men fetishize race. I think it's why Captain Kirk is considered so cool, because he flies around space having sex with all sorts of alien women. I think it's why men fantasize about fantastical women. Like when I was at university, the one day that I always wanted to make sure we went out clubbing was Halloween, because then I had the opportunity of hooking up with a vampire or a bride of Frankenstein. It's about this idea of things being exotic, whether that means wanting to have sex with someone who's a different ethnicity or venturing into the world of fantasy roleplay. The point is it makes you feel like you've made a conquest in a far off place. And that's what mushrooms are trying to do. That's why they spread their spores so far. Like that's why birds eat the seeds of plants and fly them away and then poop them out, because the goal is to spread your seed far away. And if this desire for the exotic and the unfamiliar extends to fantasy creatures, why wouldn't it extend to women with penises? I mean, they're also a fantasy. Also, on the subject of conquest, here's a genuinely funny true story. I'm one of those guys who's really into an itinerary when I go traveling, because if I want to travel to a place, I want to make sure that I actually experience what it is to be in that place. So I want to engage with what are the big things associated with that place. If I'm going to Vegas, I'm going to gamble. If I'm going to Nepal, I'm going to meditate on a mountaintop. If I'm going to Greece, I'm going to visit the Parthenon. And since I have that attitude, it's almost like an automatic part of my brain that kicks in. It's like, hey, I'm going to Finland. Well, you've got to go to Lapland and visit Santa's workshop. Yeah, definitely. Also, I'm going to Kenya. Well, you definitely want to make sure you go on safari. Absolutely. Also, I'm going to Thailand. Well, you better make sure you have sex with a ladyboy. Wait, what? No. It doesn't help that my sister went to Thailand and she got a massage from a ladyboy and she said it was the best massage of her life. But I know that if I walk into a massage parlor in Thailand and say, hey, I'm looking for a massage from a ladyboy and I would like it to be the best massage of my life, then I know that they're going to think I'm asking for something else. So I just think we have to acknowledge that in this bizarre intersection of sexuality, gender, and biological sex, there seem to be some biological males who have some enthusiasm for this whole thing, and whether it's just because it's taboo or they perceive it to be exotic, I don't think it can just be simplified to, oh, they're gay. Let's talk about genital preferences. Can you see yet why I didn't want to have to go through all of this stuff in my response to ContraPoints? As I've said several times now, this video is focused on men, and as such, I don't know whether or not what a lot of women say, which is they can always tell whether someone is biologically male. I don't know if that applies here. And even if I could tell that a post-op was biologically male, I don't think that would necessarily mean that me ignoring that would make me gay. So by way of analogy, let's take this trans-identifying male model who I found on Instagram. Now, this person clearly has had a huge amount of plastic surgery. This is not the natural female form, so I could very easily, reasonably infer that this is someone who has undergone cosmetic surgery to make themselves look more like a female. But at the same time, there are also plenty of biological females who have also had a huge amount of plastic surgery, especially on Instagram. I think a lot of the time people are being a little bit disingenuous when they say we can always tell, because what they're actually assuming is that this is always going to be a comparison between a very natural looking woman who's got a minimal amount of makeup and a biological male who's clearly had plastic surgery and is very heavily made up. But the issue is, whatever you think about plastic surgery and the broader hyper-feminized aesthetic, the reality is there are women who embody that, and you'd be hard-pushed to argue that the men who are attracted to the hyper-feminine women are gay. I joked earlier about someone asking me if I'm a bum man or a boob man, and it's sending me into an existential crisis, but it genuinely is true that I could spend a long time just sitting there thinking to myself, what is it about biological females that I, as a straight man, actually find attractive? Like, what is the thing that is there that if it weren't there, I wouldn't find them attractive? I don't even know what the answer to that question is, so I definitely couldn't say with complete confidence that it's something that can only be found in females, and there's no possibility that there could ever be any biological male, even with all of the plastic surgery and makeup available to them to try to emulate the feminine form as much as possible, that they could never achieve that same thing that appeals to me about women. But what's interesting is that I am not, and I would imagine actually very few people are, specifically attracted to someone's genitals. I mean, I've seen people joke before about how male genitals do look just kind of gross.
Is that normal? What, taking photographs of it and showing it to your mates? No, it's not. Well, but is it supposed to look like that? Well, yeah. But it's hideous.
And certainly, if someone were to ask me, why am I attracted to women? What is it about women that just appeals to me? I personally wouldn't say, well, it's just because vaginas are so gorgeous. Indeed, I kind of feel like one's appreciation for the aesthetic of vaginas as opposed to penises has actually very little to do with sexuality. Like, you can be a penis person or a vagina person, and from that, I don't think I actually know anything about your sexuality, because you can make an argument for both having a certain aesthetic appeal. The argument for the vagina being aesthetically appealing is very well known. You just liken it to a flower. The labial folds look like petals, and doesn't that suggest something delicate and pretty and lovely? The argument for the penis, I think, would be a bit more abstract. The phallus itself is evocative. It's powerful. It doesn't have these labial folds, but it's clear and it's strident. It's like an ionic column, standing erect and proud. I don't think that all the straight men and lesbians want to go to the Georgia O'Keeffe exhibition, and all of the gay men and straight women want to just go stare at the Washington Monument for hours. I personally don't have any particular strong aversion to a penis. I mean, I have one, so I'd hope not. There's nothing particularly off-putting to me about a penis, but for very obvious reasons, there's something off-putting to me about a so-called neo-vagina. Because I know what it actually is. It's a penis that's been cut open and turned inside out. And if I have a singular genital preference, it would be to have nothing to do with that. What's really funny is that I've mentioned before the trans group chat that I was on, and I actually used it as a proving ground for some of these ideas. But when I said this in this group chat, a lot of people decided this was undeniable proof that I was in fact clearly, secretly, a homosexual. But I suppose that makes sense, because from their perspective, they think that what it actually is a vagina. So when I say I don't like the idea of a so-called neo-vagina, they hear I don't like the idea of a vagina. I will say just one thing to throw the trans activists a bone, if you'll pardon the expression. As much as people make fun of the idea of the so-called feminine penis, I think there probably is a significant difference between your typical biological male's penis that is like probably reasonably big and capable of getting erect and stuff like that, and the penis of your typical semi-op where it's been significantly neutered and, yeah, I guess you could say feminized, as in made certainly less typically masculine through the use of estrogen. I think the basic argument for why straight men could maybe sometimes be attracted to post-op and even semi-op trans-identified males is actually pretty intuitive. If you are physically attracted to a certain demographic, then you also being attracted to people who've made an effort to make themselves look physically much more like members of that demographic kind of just makes sense. If we return back to the 4chan quote, it's not really expressing a coherent sentiment, but it would make a lot more sense to say, I'm a straight male, therefore I'm attracted to women, therefore I'm also going to be attracted to people who make a considerable effort to look like a typical woman. To return back to the study, at the bar, those trans women who could produce the most successful femininity occupied the highest tier of desirability in the competition for men sexually interested in trans women. If the appeal is for them to look feminine, then it's not surprising that in the study, every single person interviewed who had had sex with a so-called trans woman, except one, said that their first preference would actually be for a biological female in terms of sexual partner. So why don't they just have sex with a biological female? Well, probably for all the reasons I've mentioned so far in this video. But it's also worth noting, this study is talking about the extreme example of men who consider themselves straight but have actually had sex with a biological male. Meanwhile, the claim that if you are at all in any sense attracted to a biological male, that means you're gay, would apply to a much broader group of people. Because honestly, the men who actually then go out of their way to physically find a trans-identified male are going to be the ones who are much more likely to actually want to interface with the penis, and that is a much more gay thing to want to do. Meanwhile, in reality, despite being a guy who has, yes, just made an entire video that's probably quite a long video about all the reasons why a straight man might engage sexually with other men and yet still be gay, this is not an issue that actually affects me very much at all. I mean, insofar as it does relate to me, it's only because I've spent more time looking at trans-identified males because I've been dedicated to intellectually debunking their ideology. I've only ever, in practice, been attracted to women. I've only ever had one-night stands with women. I am now married to a woman. If it weren't for the fact the internet exists, where some of the most passing, which is to say probably attractive, trans-identified males are more likely to be elevated to positions of minor fame, I probably wouldn't be aware of a single trans-identified male who I would consider in any sense attractive, and as such would be completely content to just say that the only determiner in sexuality is the biological sex of the person you're sexually attracted to. But the internet exists, and I am bound to be honest, so if someone asks me, are you saying that all there is to sexuality is just the biological sex of the person you're attracted to, and that is a rigid, strict determiner of your sexuality? I would probably have to respond to them by saying, well, look, I think actually there is enough ambiguity around what it actually means to be the object of heterosexual male attraction that there probably maybe needs to be some leeway on that point. Having said that, I am an advocate for using simple language in the interest of communicating clearly and effectively. I will undoubtedly many times after this video say that straight men are only attracted to biological females, that lesbians are only attracted to biological females, gay men are only attracted to biological males. I will say that. You can hear it here first. I will guarantee make that statement many times in the future. That's not me being dishonest, that's just me talking about things in terms of the overwhelming reality, which is that in reality, overwhelmingly, that's true. And that's true unless I'm taking some specific time out to clarify the very minor but existing complications to that reality. For me, talking in general terms isn't dishonest, but to claim that there aren't any complications whatsoever would be dishonest, and I'm not about that. The issue is, my reason for being gender critical is that I think the way we use language makes sense and allows us to explain the world in a more coherent and intuitive way. If you're going to say that a biological male is bisexual because he is attracted to some biological males who have gone out of their way to use the best modern science available to make himself look as much like a biological female as possible, if you're going to say someone who's attracted to biological females is bisexual because he's also attracted to that, then you're being ridiculous. You're not using words in a way that makes sense. Now, having said that, it should be pointed out, this isn't a win for self-ID, because obviously this has nothing to do with self-ID. As much as I'm saying that the absolutist position leads to some counterintuitive conclusions, the self-ID position leads you to the conclusion that I would become gay if my wife decided to start identifying as a man. And clearly that's nonsense. So hopefully we'll be able to explore the pitfalls of the pro-trans position next week when we respond to the ContraPoints. Until then, I will leave you with some final words of wisdom from the study I read. The more feminine they are, the more interested I am. And the more drunk I get, the more feminine they become. That's from Robert, who specified as having a master's degree, although it doesn't say what his degree was in. I can only assume philosophy. Anyway, everyone, I hope you did, on some level, enjoy this as much as I enjoyed making it. And now, let's do this. Okay, I don't know what that does. I mean, it makes me orange, certainly. Someone recently said, look, I got this. And I was so happy, because I was like, oh, lovely. You know, what I hate is British winter, because... because... Well, you can't really, I mean, you can't really tell. I guess you can. So what is it? Is it nighttime? No. It's early afternoon. It's early afternoon. It's just that's how cloudy it is. Like, there is not, I haven't seen the sun in what feels like years. And I don't like using, I like natural light. So I was like, oh, this will be fine. You know, like, I'll be able to handle this. And I was thinking, you know, it's early February. Surely we're kind of clear of winter. No, we're not. But yeah, so I was like, oh, this will solve all my problems, because now I don't have to worry about natural light anymore, because that's nice and, like, kind of natural light, blah, blah, blah. But everyone was like, well, I got, like, some comments from people that were like, don't use a ring light, I don't like seeing the reflection in your glasses, which is fine, but if it's not going to appear in my glasses, then I have to have it, like, off to the side so it won't appear in my glasses, but then it leaves a weird shadow. It's crazy to me. Well, I think I realised what it is. I need a diffuser, right? Is that a thing? Like a diffuser? So it kind of makes it so that it'll just be a broad general light instead of one specific thing. So maybe that's the next thing that I need to get to take my lighting situation up to line. Because that was ridiculous. But I was like, I don't know, like I was aware that as the video was going on, it was getting darker and darker and darker, and what was I supposed to do, right? Like, I could have just randomly turned the light on, but I was like, I just don't want to, like, suddenly, at least the slowly growing darkness is a gradual thing, whereas me suddenly being orange would come out of nowhere. But now, in the outro, I'm happy to do that. Anyway, yeah, if you disagree with me, then you can let me know. I'm actually still kind of going off the script. I'm going to try and sound like I'm saying this off the cuff. Oh, and actually, one final funny thing. Like I say, I mentioned some of this stuff in a trans group chat, and there was someone there who was like, you know what? I think secretly you are obsessively attracted to trans women, and that's why you do this whole YouTube channel, because, you know, you're trying to disguise the fact that secretly you think we're really hot. And I was like, okay, I just need you to think about what you're saying now for a second. You're saying that I have this secret obsession that I'm super ashamed of, and that I'm so ashamed of it that that's motivated me to start this whole channel where I complain about trans identity and all that kind of stuff, because this is just such a deep, secret thing. But according to you, simultaneously, you've now discovered that, because the first thing I do when I'm on a group chat with a load of strangers is immediately start talking about the context in which I think it would make sense for a straight dude to be attracted to trans-identified males. Do you not see how it doesn't really make sense? That this is a big secret, but also simultaneously I immediately admitted to it. But yeah, I can just imagine someone having the same attitude towards this video, where they'd be like, this proves that there's some kind of crazy sexual obsession. And I enjoy that. But I'd be like, yeah, you know, I tried to keep it secret for so long. It was just, I had it in the recess of my mind. It was hidden in the background. And then my one mistake, the sole thing I did wrong, just this tiny slip up, was making an entire video exploring in detail the complexities of the intersection between sexuality and diverse gender expression. One mistake. How do I set a video to private? Help me, guys, please. Also, if you don't feel like helping me with that, then you can do all the algorithm stuff, and the other thing you can do is you can give on Patreon. If you give on Patreon, you will get to see this clip, and here is the clip.
After weeks of explaining again what I was going through, the intense oscillation between thoughts of, I can just suck it up and be a straight man and have a family,
and hey, actually, you know what? It's perfectly fine for me to be a feminine gay man, and there's nothing wrong with that. Is that where we're going here?
I think I'll die if I don't transition.
Yeah, okay, like that's the thing. And again, we've had the standard thing, like, this person is clearly to some degree conservative in their mentality. I mean, like, there was a whole thing about them going to an evangelical church, which I'm not saying all evangelical churches have to be conservative, but I am saying that, like, the fact that your solution to, like, what you're going through is, like, if you're a man who feels like this intense draw towards a typical feminine role, to say, oh, I'm not going to go to, like, a gay club where there are plenty of men who are completely comfortable experimenting with their gender expression while also recognizing they're men. No, I'm going to go to a church where I'm going to be told that I'm, like, evil and say, it just, like, it doesn't seem, like, I don't want to say that's not, like, a good solution, because obviously I think going to a church is good, but I'm saying, like, to have that specifically as your solution to a desire to transition, I think is, to me, probably unlikely to result in you actually solving that problem. So, I hope that looks interesting. Yeah. I really didn't enjoy recording this because I was worried about writing. So I'm mad. Sometimes you don't. I don't know. How good of a job do I do at hiding things? Can you tell sometimes when I'm becoming increasingly frustrated throughout the course of the recording session? I hope not. Alright, bye! And I would 100% have hot, nasty sex with him. Last week, I submitted for your consideration my magnum opus on whether or not it is gay to be a gay man who is gay in a gay way. I'd recommend watching that video if you haven't already, but at some point I will present my central argument here, but I'm not going to tell you when. I was hoping to explore some more of the complex intersection between sexuality as a socially constructed notion and biological sex as an objective material reality. However, Contra doesn't really say that much worth responding to about the specifics of these complexities. Indeed, I'd say that my video is decidedly the better one in terms of the substance and the accuracy of the points I make. So, let's look at the areas where Contra and I have any sort of disagreement. I do realize I'm being kind of ridiculous here in that Contra actually does identify as trans and has had sex with supposedly straight men. Meanwhile, I have no such personal experience whatsoever, but I have read a formal academic paper on the topic and also browsed 4chan a few times, so I'd give myself the edge here in terms of expertise. By the way, if you appreciate the hardcore research I do, then you're very welcome to give on Patreon, and I will take this moment to thank those who currently give on Patreon and support what I'm doing. You are very appreciated. A good place to start would be a distinction I implicitly draw and Contra explicitly defines as 3 levels of being into so-called trans women. For Contra, the first of these would be someone who is put off by the presence of a penis but is happy to ignore it.
Group 1 are men who, to be honest, are actually kind of put off by the dick, but they're so attracted to the woman it's attached to that they're willing to work around it or wait for it to grow on them.
Then there's men who are indifferent to the penis and could basically take or leave it.
2 are men who are attracted to trans women including their penises, but they don't specifically fetishize the penis, so they wouldn't mind if their trans lover had genital reassignment and got a vagina.
And then finally, there are men who are actively into the penis.
3 are men who specifically fetishize chicks with dicks and often want to worship the penis or be penetrated by it. Now group 3 are what the trans community calls chasers.
Now, I'm sorry to do this, but I think that Contra's stratification of the 3 different types of men who would have sex with a so-called trans woman is kind of mid. Here is the alternative that I would present, which I think is much better. Firstly, men who are content to ignore the penis. I don't think it really matters whether they're slightly put off by it but willing to ignore it, or indifferent to it. That's not really a distinction worth making. Now, the second level, in my view, would be men who are enthused that there is a penis there, maybe even in a fetishistic way, but they actually don't want to engage with the penis sexually. And this leaves the third category, which is the men who do want to engage with the penis. Whether we're talking filleting or penetrating, they're down for it. And I think this issue of men who actively want to engage with the penis is where Contra kind of just departs from reality.
Some guys want the T's and the D's. Now, a lot of people assume that the involvement of a dick, even a lady dick, makes any sexual interaction with a man gay.
Does the presence of 2 penises automatically make a sexual encounter gay? Well, maybe we could debate around that point, especially if one of the penises is being ignored. But if you are actively, enthusiastically engaging sexually with a penis and you are a dude, that's pretty damn gay.
Sucking another man's dick just to try it does not make you gay.
To be fair, Contra's specific argument there does seem to be that sexuality is robust and socially constructed, such that one isolated same-sex encounter isn't enough alone to redefine your entire sexuality. And yeah, I would agree, that doesn't make you gay. I mean, no singular thing makes you gay or straight in any strict sense. But there are some things where if you do them, you should strongly consider the possibility that you might be gay. I mean, I didn't mention this in my video last week, but one time I actually did make out with a dude at university, largely because I was drunk, but partially because I was genuinely curious. And I can say that doing that solidified my knowledge that I am in fact straight, because I didn't enjoy it at all. But significantly, it didn't take me going down on him to realize that, because if it had taken me that long to realize I wasn't into it, I think I'd be much less credible now when I claim that the overall takeaway from that experience should be that I'm 100% straight. Now, Contra does make a less extreme version of this sucking a penis doesn't make you gay argument by specifying, what if it's a female penis?
Sucking a female penis is not gay.
It's still gay. Definitely 100% gay. I wouldn't say that it makes you gay, because I do agree with Contra that no single sex act makes you gay. However, that specific act of being a man, sucking a penis, that is a gay thing to do. That act is gay. Now, I would agree that engaging with a penis that's been massively altered by taking wrong sex hormones is probably at least a little bit less gay than engaging sexually with a penis that's big and vascular and jacked up on testosterone. I mean, really, you could simplify this to just being about size. I remember one time on 4chan seeing a guy ask for pictures of big dick she-males. That is gay. But really, saying that engaging sexually with a smaller penis would be more appealing to a straight man is just kind of obvious, because definitionally, there is less penis there. Contra, in my submission, kind of overcomplicates this matter.
A lady of good breeding never brandishes her penis. When she rises from the bath, she covers it gracefully with a demure hand, and when not in use, she keeps it carefully stowed away.
I don't think many guys actually care about that. I think the top priority, if you have to engage with a penis, would just be that there's as little penis as possible. Anyway, the final broad area of disagreement is where Contra mentions that
First, I should remind everyone that a lot of trans women do in fact have vaginas because they got five.
okay, so they don't have vaginas. Reducing a vagina down to just a hole, and as such saying if you have your penis cut up and turned inside out, you have a vagina, is an incredibly reductive way of thinking about women's bodies. Contra tries to dismiss the inherent misogyny that people might have a concern with by saying that the only feminist concern is that vaginas have some kind of magical transcendent quality that can't be attained through crude surgery.
Of course, transphobic radical feminists will say it's not a real vagina, just a fuckhole, because a real vagina is a sacred passage.
But no, saying that a vagina is more than just a hole in your crotch is not necessarily saying it must therefore be this magical transcendent thing. My penis is more than just a phallus, and me saying that isn't me declaring it to be some magic wand. Speaking of a penis being a magic wand, Contra does try to justify this simplistic assessment of what constitutes a vagina by saying that while those stupid uppity women might have a problem with this idea, the fellas don't care.
Straight men don't get hung up on this. I guarantee you no straight man has ever thought of a vagina as a sacred passage.
Now, I'm a straight dude, and yeah, I don't think that a vagina is a sacred passage, but I have to say, I'm with the women on this one. It's more than just a hole. More to the point, straight men do consider the distinction between a so-called neo-vagina and, an actual vagina to be very relevant. Because I have said on this channel several times before that, to me, a so-called neo-vagina would actually be less appealing sexually than a straight-up penis. I said this on a stream one time, and I also said it in last week's video, and in neither case did any straight men express disagreement with me. My basic argument is that I know that in fact what we're actually talking about here is a penis that has been cut up and turned inside out. As a penis owner myself, that could not be any less sexually appealing to me. So sorry Contra, but as far as I can tell, this idea that all straight men are just like, boy, an inside out penis, that's basically a vagina, is broadly inaccurate, and certainly it's at least decidedly inaccurate in my case. Basically every single time I make a video about a more peripheral issue in the trans debate, I always have to have at least a section on the question of whether trans women are women, because in many ways the conversation will always come back to that.
If a man is attracted to or has sex with a trans woman, is that gay? Well, the simple answer is no, because trans women are women.
Now obviously that's not exactly circular, but it's unlikely to convince someone like me who doesn't agree with the premise. However, Contra provides some empirical evidence for this claim by saying,
The facts are indisputable. Many heterosexual men are attracted to trans women, and comparatively few gay men are.
Now, despite saying that's irrefutable, somebody could refute it by saying, well, if the men you're talking about were down to have sex with another biological male, then they definitionally aren't heterosexual. However, Contra does provide a reason for saying that these men, in fact, are heterosexual.
And to trans women, it's a basic fact of experience that the people who are attracted to us are people who are attracted to women.
Now, this could still be disputed, maybe they're bi, but this is actually a point of view that I debunked at the end of my previous video, more substantially than Contra does here. I am sexually attracted to women. I've only ever dated women, only ever had one-night stands with women. I am now married to a woman. If there is a tiny, tiny proportion of biological males who I might also be happy to date, to hook up with, maybe even to marry, does it make sense, based on that tiny proportion of biological males, in contrast to the huge number of biological females, if that's true, to therefore say that I'm bisexual? Especially if that tiny, tiny proportion of biological males are specifically those who, firstly, probably already had a natural advantage in terms of looking more feminine, and then have used all of the available resources of contemporary medical science to make themselves look as much like a typical female as possible. At that point, doesn't it just make sense to say that I'm actually just straight? It's a pretty simple principle. If you are attracted to a group of people, then it also just by extension makes sense you would be attracted to someone who has made themselves look like a typical member of that group. Or, if you want to be weird about it, like Contra,
She has female skin, she smells like a woman.
maybe I'm conflating the loner anime profile trans cells with the actually attractive parsoids here, but I honestly suspect that I'm, if anything, more attracted to trans-identified males when I can't smell them. Also, since such a person is male, I'm not sure where they're getting female skin from, but that sounds horrific. But making fun of the weird wording aside, I do agree that a post-op trans-identifying male is probably going to be reminiscent of a biological female in some ways, because that's literally the whole point. I mean, as Contra points out, the very term trap implies that it works, that these biological males look enough like women that straight men are attracted to them.
If someone calls me a trap, my response is more like, wow, a transphobe, but I look like a woman.
But the point is that this doesn't prove that such biological males actually are women. Sure, straight men are attracted to women, and straight men might be attracted to these males, but that just proves that these males look like women, not that they actually are women. Imagine if a Mexican claimed to like Mexican food. Not just Mexican food, but authentic Mexican food, the way that Abuela makes it. Now, let's imagine that a Mexican tries the fajita mix that I batch cook every Sunday and then eat for my lunch throughout the entire week. They might try it and say, this is muy delicioso. But does that mean that my batch-cooked air-fryer fajitas are authentic Mexican cuisine? No. Every one of my ancestors lived their entire life between Hertfordshire and Berkshire. I use creme fraiche instead of sour cream. I use store-brand salsa. Right now, I'm using a West Indian hot sauce instead of Tabasco. To be honest, I'm pretty sure the only reason I like Mexican food is because at some point I realized that a burrito is just bread, beans, and cheese, and that activated a primal part of my British brain that's hardwired to love beans on toast. The point is, it's not Mexican food. It's certainly not authentic Mexican food. If, by some miracle, a Mexican actually enjoyed my bastardized version of their national cuisine, that wouldn't actually mean it was Mexican food. It would just be a British guy doing a rough approximation of it. And if they didn't like it, at least they wouldn't be twats about it like the Italians. So, for example, if we take fan-favorite trans content creator Brittany Cade, just because you as a straight man might say, oh, that's kind of appealing, that doesn't prove that someone is a woman. It just proves that they look like a woman. It's just an approximation of it. Last week I conceded at length that yeah, sexuality is complicated, and if you want a good definition of what it means to be straight, you can't rely on an absolute strict biological definition. Here, I was hoping to be able to point out the obvious, that a trans identity-based definition makes even less sense. You know, if my wife decided that she's a man tomorrow, then to say that would make me gay is obviously nonsense. The problem is, Contra basically just admits this.
Every heterosexual man who's experiencing attraction to a trans woman is necessarily experiencing heterosexual attraction because of the way the person he's attracted to identifies. But that's just replacing the black and white thinking of a biology dogma with the black and white thinking of an identity dogma.
The issue is, all my talk about heterosexual males potentially being attracted to some trans-identifying males is based on focusing on a tiny, tiny proportion of them who actually are able to pass and appear attractive. It would be ridiculous to hear the concession, there are some biological males who undergo all this surgery to make themselves look like women, and that might make them attractive to a straight man, and get the conclusion from that, all trans women are hecking valid and are universally attractive to straight men. That's the issue with the identity dogma. It's really got nothing to do with how you identify. The other issue for trans identity is that sometimes straight men might find a feminine presenting man attractive, even if he doesn't identify as a woman.
The messy reality is that a lot of straight men are also attracted to male crop stressors.
I mean, until recently, Finster was a really good example of this. A dude posting thirst traps intended to appeal to straight men while not even claiming to be a woman. But now Finster does identify as a woman, so I'm not sure who the best current real-world example would be of a non-trans identifying male who nonetheless does as good of a job presenting as a woman most elite passing trans-identifying males and actually does a lot better of a job than the vast majority of them. But there almost certainly is a real-world example of that, with gender expression and identity being as complicated as it is, and there being 8 billion human beings. And even without a real-world example, you'd still need to contend with this hypothetical. If you're saying that a straight man being attracted to another man who identifies as a man would make that man a woman, then you are the one rejecting self-identity as valid. Contra accuses people of not knowing the difference between these diverse forms of gendered existence.
You know, a lot of these men don't know or care about the difference between a trans woman and a cross-dresser, so it's kind of pointless to get hung up on that.
But I'd say that actually in this context, those distinctions simply don't matter, and it makes for a more productive discussion if we simply ignore them. All we're really asking here is whether there is some group of biological males who might be attractive to straight men, and the answer to that question has really nothing to do with trans identity or trans ideology. As such, it can't really say anything in favor of the suggestion that trans women are women. So with that said, one question we should ask is, well, why does this matter?
Sometimes when you've been arguing about something for more than half an hour, it's good to take a step back and ask yourself, why are we even asking this question in the first place? Why does it even matter whether attraction to trans women is gay or straight?
I mean, honestly, even if it was about trans identity, we still might ask why it matters, because many people ask me why I think that matters, such that it's the main focus of my channel. And in both cases, I'm happy to give the same response. Well, for me, truth and accurately describing reality matters intrinsically. What it means to be straight and the complexities of that categorization beyond just being a biological male exclusively attracted to biological females is interesting to me. How do we recognize the blurred edges of definitions while not succumbing to a postmodernist stupor where literally nothing means anything? I think when I make a video about whether or not a straight man can find so-called trans women attractive, a lot of people must assume that I am attracted to trans women, or in some way I've been affected by that issue, such that talking about it could be emotionally and ideologically cathartic for me. But no, it's just interesting. And I think the question of what makes someone gay or straight is worth asking just based on that. But also there is a utility in knowing what words mean. The LGB Alliance should not be advocating for my rights, nor should the Gay and Lesbian Alliance.
I'm an elk, a mason, a communist. I'm the president of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance for some reason.
And with that said, obviously it was worth establishing whether this was relevant to the question of whether trans women are women, because that has huge real-world implications for people's lives. Despite what Contra says,
You know, as trans women, we have little influence in society. The people who lead the conversations about us are bigger and stronger than we are.
there is a legitimate concern amongst women that there are people claiming to be women who are in fact bigger and stronger than they are.
So we're like a jogger racing against a car.
Or like a female athlete racing against a male one. So yeah, it really doesn't matter if some random dude sees a biological male and thinks, pretty sexy. But it does matter and has real world consequences if people based on that start reasoning that biological males can be women. Fortunately, as Contra points out, this is actually an area where many people based on this are more likely to realize that so-called trans women actually aren't women, as opposed to the opposite.
These people tell you trans women are women, but... And then they say something that shows they don't really think trans women are women at all.
Like, yeah, if you believe in trans ideology, then you think that I would become gay if my wife decided to identify as a man. But you don't really think that. And the more we talk about this issue, the more people might realize that they don't really think that. And I think that having a more honest society where people don't claim to believe things that they don't actually believe can only be a good thing. So that's my basic argument for why this does matter, but there's also a different argument made by Contra as to why this does matter and is a controversial issue.
In fact, our very existence as a kind of trap. I think it should therefore be pretty clear why trans women are not the biggest fans of you using that word for us.
Now, to be fair, the main claim actually seems to be that it's just the term trap, specifically, that is harmful. Now, Contra, in acknowledging the discussion itself is worth having, actually still uses the word trap.
I also have to argue whether traps are gay.
But to be fair, then resolves to stop doing that and start using the term trans women instead.
I'm gonna stop saying trap now because it's not a good word, as has been explained. In fact, it's really best to treat it like a slur. So what we're really asking here is if a man is attracted to or has sex with a trans woman.
Although, as already pointed out, that's not necessarily a great term to use either, because being a trans woman is about identity and not necessarily about what men find attractive. The term trap is actually kind of useful as a specific term to mean a transsexual who passes such that a straight man might find them attractive. Like, sociologically, that's actually quite a useful categorization to have in your back pocket, considering how often sexuality and gender expression overlap. But the issue is the term transsexual is also considered offensive, as is even the entire concept of passing. So really, we don't have any words to talk about anything if we're going to be super diligent with regards to people's sensitivities. Nonetheless, I do recognize that the specific term trap might be a very bad word to use, considering the use of the trans panic defense and the tendency of biological males to react violently when they think they've been tricked into a sexual encounter with a biological male. Contra does provide a specific example of someone describing this experience.
I was with a guy and he was playing with my titties until he touched me down there. He felt it, he seen it, and he like totally flipped out. He said, "You fucking faggot, you're a freak, you're a victim of AIDS and you're trying to give me AIDS."
Now, before I say anything else, I should say, obviously, nobody should be violently attacking anyone. Any man who is unable to control his emotions and responds violently because he feels upset about a perceived betrayal is a violent animal who deserves to be put in prison. And if you identify as a feminist, let's acknowledge something very important. Any man who would respond with violent, murderous anger because of a threat to his masculinity from having had a sexual encounter with a trans-identifying male is definitely guaranteed a deadly threat to women. On that note, if you are a woman, then you are a lot more justified freaking out if you find out that you've actually been interacting with a biological male without realizing it, because biological males are much more of a threat to you. But honestly, if you're a dude, I would say control your emotions and do not respond violently to any situation where it's not absolutely necessary. And anybody who fails to control their emotions and does murder someone violently should not be able to use the trans panic defense, especially since they've now shown that they are impulsively violent and are 100% a threat to other people going forward. With that said, in this example provided by Contra, this is somebody who clearly wasn't expecting to find a penis and also mentions AIDS as a concern, which is a very legitimate reason to be concerned and to react in a very concerned way about being potentially tricked into a homosexual encounter. Now, Contra does acknowledge the obvious response a lot of people would have to this story,
saying that if trans women don't want to get murdered, then they shouldn't trick men.
Obviously, anyone giving this response as a way to minimize the evil of these murders is gross, but at the same time, the way that Contra responds to this is frankly bizarre.
But what you have to understand is, first, men usually do know when they're having sex with a trans woman. Like, if you have a dick, it's pretty hard actually to have sex with someone and have them not notice it.
The story that Contra provides is clearly a story about a man being surprised to discover a penis. Contra seems to be suggesting that most of the time, men are 100% aware that they're engaging with a biological male. They know they're going to find a penis, they've reconciled themselves to that reality, and then suddenly they just decide to start panicking and reacting violently. That sounds like a pretty outrageous claim, and it's certainly contradicted by some accounts I've read by actual trans-identifying males. For example, this book about trans-identifying male prostitutes in Thailand specifically mentions intentionally hiding your penis so that the person you're having sex with doesn't realize the penis is there throughout the entire sexual encounter. So I think that claiming that every man actually just knows the whole time he's having a same-sex encounter is ridiculous. Contra's next point is slightly better though.
And second, a lot of men view trans women's entire existence as itself a kind of trickery.
And yeah, that's a valid point. A lot of men are homophobic and transphobic because they are male chauvinists who believe in the supremacy of masculinity in a system that could, not to be too woke, be described as heteropatriarchy. And obviously that's messed up for all sorts of reasons, and I'd submit, not a good reason to murder people. But also, aside from anything else, it's not exactly very alpha. Like, some twinky gay guy is just living his best life and you need to physically attack him because him just existing is a threat to your masculinity. I'm a pretty masculine guy. I watch the football, I have a trad wife, I drink beer, and I don't feel the need to defend my masculinity. In fact, I'd say that I'm pretty open to flouting the typical conventions of masculinity is what makes me a true alpha. And it's on this point that Contra and I are in broad agreement.
But this idea of manhood is hurting you.
Also, fun fact, I just found out from my wife a few days ago that some dudes don't wash their buttholes, and then I hear that same thing from Contra.
And some men won't even wash their own assholes for fear that some involuntary
first time I'm hearing this. Contra and my wife are both from Baltimore, so maybe this is a Baltimore thing. But oh my goodness, as a bidet enthusiast, you are missing out.
What about bidet? Bidet, they do indeed have, though it's easier really to do a handstand in the shower. And if you want the expense of a bidet, yes. Easier. If you're as nimble as I am.
I mean, look, the lameness of strict masculinity and the possibility of a slightly less cringe, more positive conception of masculinity is a long discussion for another time. But I do want to end on another broad area of agreement, because Contra says one of the big problems with this whole R-traps gay discussion is that it means that dudes who actually are attracted to trans-identifying males won't just nut up and dive in because they're worried about the stigma.
And the stigma is very real. A straight man who dates a trans woman takes on some of the burden of queerness. Men who date us can be mocked by other men, they can be rejected by their families.
And I will just take this moment to say that if you are a straight man and there is a so-called trans woman to whom you are attracted, whom you would consider making an honest man out of, even if we're talking about someone who isn't in fact honest about being a man, then I say, have at it. I mean, I've said before, if it turned out that secretly my wife was trans and I've been keeping that a secret from you, that wouldn't make me a hypocrite. It would make me dishonest in that I called her my wife and referred to her with women's pronouns, even though she would not in fact be a woman. But the relationship itself would not be hypocritical on my part. Because I've never claimed that trans-identifying males are unattractive. I've never said that it's illegitimate to be in a relationship with them. You'll never find any example in any of my videos where I claim that. Frankly, I do want to normalize the idea that dudes can have faithful, monogamous, legitimate relationships with trans-identifying males, because why shouldn't we be allowed to have that? Firstly, because I was thinking recently, I don't want those who identify as trans to be materially harmed. I want their lives to be wonderful and filled with happiness and fulfillment. So certainly it would be consistent with that if they were able to have happy, fulfilling relationships with no twinge of shame or stigma. Also, I feel sorry for the trans-identifying people who don't want to be degenerates. I mean, ladies, I'm sure we'd all agree it's pretty hard to find a decent man nowadays. It took me a while to find a decent woman, if I'm honest. So could you imagine how much harder that would be if the general perception of the average man attracted to you was that you were nothing more than a porn category? So yeah, personally, in my dream world, if there are going to be biological males who try to make themselves look like women, then I hope that they're able to pull that off convincingly. And if that leaves a straight dude thinking, well, I'm a straight dude, I'm attracted to women, that person looks like a woman, so I say, let's get serious and settle down, they shouldn't be thinking there's some magical rule that says that's inherently illegitimate. So I'm going to go for the woke ending on this one. Are traps gay? Well, I'll tell you what they are. They're human beings, not traps. So stop being weird and fetishizing them, and also, and this is where I'm going to be super woke, don't murder them. Anyway, everyone, thanks for all the things that you do for the algorithm, which you consistently and reliably do, unfortunately never appreciated. Also, if you give on Patreon, that is very appreciated. It grants you access to a bonus video, and I will show you a clip from that bonus video. Also, something I should mention, because someone reminded me, and I forgot in last video, and now it's kind of too late, but Runaway Siren, a critic of trans ideology, who I assume a lot of you have probably heard of, quite recently passed away, and there was a fundraiser for funeral expenses. I did just check, and the funeral has actually already happened, but I believe they're still accepting donations, and I'm sure those donations would go to something worthwhile. So I would just say, obviously, if you would like to contribute to that, then that's something you might consider doing. Obviously, it's a very sad thing. I assume a lot of people are aware of it, and I don't think I've actually formally acknowledged it. So I just wanted to, aside from saying there's the fundraiser, which I will link, there's also just the fact that it's a very sad thing that happened, and therefore I thought it warranted a mention. Anyway, I will now show you the clip from my Patreon. I can't remember whether or not it's a funny clip. That would be a bit tonally jarring, so I apologize, but here it is. Look, I mean, the thing is, and this is where I'm going to come in being conciliatory, but when I say conciliatory, what I mean is just right and saying something that's obviously in keeping with what's true. Obviously, if you are transphobic, you're unlikely to want to have relations with a trans-identified person. So, to be honest, yeah, if someone said if you have absolutely no interest in having sexual relations with a trans-identified person, that might be an indication that you are transphobic. And yeah, someone to say, hey Michael, maybe the reason why you're not infused about the notion of having sex with a trans-identified person is because you spend all your time on YouTube criticizing trans identity and trans ideology and trans activism. I would say, you know what, I think you might be onto something there. That's probably pretty credible. So if that looks entertaining, then by all means leave it on Patreon. That's very appreciated. Link to, well, let's see, there'll be a link to the original video last week, and also to the crowdfunder in the comments. Bye!
Oh, look who comes crawling back. Once a Yancey, always a Yancey.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Here's some Sal.
How you been?
I've been Fantastic Four.
Don't want no more.
I have really come around to the Fantastic Four from me being a kid being like lame to me having a real affinity for the first family of Marvel. We've never talked about the beginning of the Fantastic Four. That's right. It's one of those episodes.
Oh.
We're going way back to the first 10 issues of Fantastic Four from Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. And I...
Wow. such a good team. I love this team. With the ground to help protect yourself. Oh. Look at it. Dracovish. Dracovish. I like that. Only 3 dragon just to support the monster. And then the grass to get a bunch of berries. I threw Snorlax on at the end just because I had the berries. But the berries helped Haxorus because I had confusion berries. So if I was really in trouble, I just threw the confusion berries on and they were in trouble. Come on, man. Come on. Come on, man. Come on. Yeah, I can't hear anything. Oh, this is new. Hello, Chicago. I'm done. Dude, I love it when oh, man, I can do this. There we go. I love it when babies work out. Like that was another baby game. When I get eggs off a baby and then I built my team around it, it's so nice, bro. It's just so nice. I'm like, I don't care what the babies are, I'm using them. They're just so good because you don't have to worry about evolving them. For now.
Jump down his throat. So Tom Cotton, according to Charlie Kirk, who knows because he's that connected, Tom Cotton is currently trying to undermine the Trump administration and stop some of his better picks. Guess who Mark Levin had on the show yesterday or this week? Go to his Twitter within the last 24 hours. Tom Cotton's coming on the show. Tom Cotton's coming on the show to talk about China. And then all the boomers brainwashed on my Facebook are like, what's so wrong about talking about China? Nothing. Talk about China all you want, but this is what they do. It's like, these idiots are so dumb. We just have to say China, 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 and they don't even realize what we're doing. Tom Cotton is undermining the Trump administration. Tom Cotton is trying to block Trump's choices. Yet he gets a promo spot while he's doing it on Mark Levin. This isn't a coincidence. This is how they brainwash you. Here's the guy who you think's on your side. Here's the guy who's trying to stop Trump's picks. Let's put him on Fox News so all the brainwashed boomers say, oh, the great one just showed me a new politician that really is calling out China. It's like they're no different than Lindsey Graham. They have the same Ukrainian policy and Israel policy on that matter as Adam Kinzinger, who everybody knows is deep state. Lindsey Graham, who everybody knows is deep state. Tom Cotton, Mark Levin, they're the same exact archetype. They're the same person with a slightly more tolerable twist because it's like, dude, just tell these Trump supporters, you know, you're pro-Trump when it's necessary because they probably like a few things he's doing, and then stab Trump in the back when we really get somebody pro-America first. It's not a coincidence that he had Tom Cotton on the show. This is what they do. With that being said, Ukraine was the biggest obvious plant in like U.S. history. I'm not, you know, I understand that some people are from Ukraine and some people like Ukraine. I'm not asking people not, but it's like America infiltrated Ukraine. America basically overthrew their country with at least our taxpayer dollars. America got a plant in office. And then what do people want him to do? Just roll over? Yeah, let's just put a lesbian Western plant as the head of Russia. I bet that'll be real good for those people. It's like it's just so obvious. It's just so obvious. So I could talk about this a lot, but I just wanted to say, and then I'm going to move on to a very non-controversial topic of female pilots. But if you go to the history, the Bolsheviks killed millions of people in that country. Okay. And the Bolsheviks hatched their ideas and in many cases, you know, got their inspiration, according to the press and research, in New York City. So the West has always had a role in this, whether people realize it or not. America was not socialist, but one of the biggest newspapers in New York was a Jewish socialist paper. It is what it is, but, you know, Mark Levin's not going to talk about that. He'll probably just freak out and call it anti-Semitism because that's what they do. That's what he does. That's what they all do. Not like, you know, the people like him, including some Christians, by the way. So people can't say it's hate speech because it's not just people of Mark Levin's ethnicity. There's other ethnicities and people who are equally as Zionist. You have a right to be Zionist. I'm not saying it's a horrible thing. I'm just saying that's what they do in Western press. I mean, I really don't care. That's literally what they do. It's like anti-Semitism. Yeah, it's anti-Semitism to say that Trotsky flew to New York City and met with a Jewish media company that was socialist and hatched his ideas and went and then inspired, you know, Marxist Leninism that killed millions of people. Yeah, that's hate speech. Yeah, okay. And nobody's supposed to realize that, right? They're supposed to just let a Zelensky take over their country for the West, and then the people there are going to die, just like Ukrainians have. You think this many Ukrainians would have died if Zelensky wasn't president? No. Zelensky basically sent the Ukrainians off to die in war, and then the Russians died in war for unfair election with somebody that is a plant in order to take over the country. And then in which case, like they did in Ukraine, then elections are irrelevant because once you got what you want, why would you have an election? Right? It's a war, because he'll lose. They don't want to lose power in Ukraine. They spent $200-300 billion. And as Trump has pointed out in his recent thing to Zelensky, Trump has pointed out that Zelensky said that a lot or most of the funds, he doesn't even know where they are or that they got mismanaged. He admitted that on United States press. And the press doesn't want to talk about that. That's not a big, tenet of a lot of Fox News reporting. It's because Fox News is fake opposition. I thought everybody knew that. No, the great one is just totally real, though. No, it's fake opposition. Tucker Carlson was the only person at that network that challenges their foreign policy, Lindsey Graham, deep state, Mike Pence agenda, and they sent him packing because you can't have somebody at a news network questioning the war with Iran and the war with Russia. This is big money. This is big deep state stuff. So I thought everybody knew that. No, I guess Facebook boomers are like 40 years behind. They haven't learned anything. But not trying to be rude. It is what it is. Let me know in the comments what you think. I want to get into female pilots real quick, and then I'll read some comments. If you have some comments, save them for the end, because I just want to stick to this and stay focused. So there was a plane recently that had flipped over somehow, and miraculously nobody died, which is amazing. That's great news. In Toronto, it was some subsect. I forget the exact name of it. If I looked it up, I could find it in like 2 seconds. I mean, I might as well, since I'm live and I'm, I should probably. Well, let me see. I don't have the name. You could look it up. There's a lot of the mainstream flight companies. They work with smaller ones, and then they just basically like outsource the stuff. Let me actually. It's gonna bother me if I don't look it up. Sorry. Delta Airline sub name. Maybe someone in the comments can help me. Endeavor. That's what it is. Endeavor Air. Okay. Let me see. Endeavor. I just got to make sure it is. Sorry. Endeavor Air. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that, folks. I apologize for the delay, but it was called Endeavor Air, and they work with Delta. So if you go to their Twitter and their social media, a lot of their posts that they still have up are all like girl boss posts. It's like girl boss, it's a plane with all women, there's no men on this board, and they're really pushing feminism in the skies. And yeah, I saw some of the videos that they had posted, and it was like, no men, a manless board. And I posted about it because obviously I'm not a fan of that sort of stuff. And there's a mixed review, especially on my Facebook page, where once again, no offense, boomers are 30 years behind on every topic, which is why the country is in the position it's in. But boomers think it's just the liberals, and they don't realize that they've fallen for fake opposition, and they're basically liberal feminists with guns. But in general, it's like a lot of people came on my Facebook page, and I wasn't expecting it, but I don't care. I mean, it's a healthy public forum. And they were like, oh, what's wrong with women pilots? What's wrong with celebrating this great endeavor in the air and this great achievement of no men on board? And it's like, do you want me to tell you what I think is wrong with them celebrating no men on board at an airplane like it's a girl boss TikTok account? Yeah, you want me to tell you? Because I have a lot of things that I don't like about that. Let me start with my PR statement, which is not from a PR team. I'm making it up on the spot just to give people a background of what I think. Women are amazing. Women are incredible creatures. They can do a lot of awesome stuff. And there are women that are just better than men at stuff. I'm not saying that they're not. There's women that are good drivers. There's women that are good pilots. There's women that are good everything. Like, women are great, right? That's my PR statement. But also, if you look at competitions in the world, when it comes to physical competitions, if you want the best of the best, men dominate. They dominate basketball, they dominate football, they dominate literally every physical sport. There's not a physical sport that men don't dominate. They dominate everything. If you want to look at motor skills, look at professional NASCAR. You can be a woman and do it. Look at Danica Patrick. She's amazing. She's a patriot. But at the same time, she's not a top 50 or even top 100 driver of all time. She's definitely a top 50 iconic driver, maybe a top 10 iconic driver. She's a female competing with men and doing pretty well. It's incredible. I love Danica Patrick. She's awesome. But if you want to be real, all the top drivers of all time, all of them, they're all men. Why? It's open to women. Why are they all men? If you look at chess, chess has nothing to do with physical strength. It has everything to do with mental strength, memory, pattern recognition, and logical ability to, solve puzzles for some extent. Look at the top 100 chess players right now. You'll not be shocked to find that they're all men. They're all men. The highest ranked female competitor is 117th or something. She's not even close to the top 100. I guess she's close, but not in the top 100. So despite there being no gender barrier for entry, men dominate chess. So that's a mind game. Men dominate. Physical games, men dominate. Racing and motor skills, men dominate. Flying competitions, women have done well in them, but also men dominate those as well. Let's go to like something like pistol shooting, right? That's something where it's like, men dominate that as well, because men just have, it seems like, a faster reaction speed and also physical, strength plays a role in that as well, even if people wouldn't think it when it comes to the hand grip and the speed, etc. So, how about under pressure? I mean, I bet some women are really good under pressure, but biologically, probably men serve certain roles better under that too, as the ability to, stay calm in a very heated situation. Although some guys do not stay calm. So I understand that there are some anomalies and some amazing women that deserve it, but it's like, I don't know what to tell people, but I'm not dumb. So I know that men dominate most of these things. So with airplanes though, I'm supposed to believe that girl boss TikTok posts are okay because women are just celebrating their wins and we're all equal. It's like, I'm not saying that women shouldn't be able to do stuff, but it's like, it's not, I would not, I'm just being honest. I would not want to get on a plane with no men on board. That would frighten me. I would not want to do that. If you want to do that and you would think it's awesome if your pilot came out and took a TikTok selfie with a bunch of women, no men on this board, I'm not saying they're getting in a bunch of crashes. Clearly they're not. I mean, the air safety is astronomically impressive, and I'm sure that has to do with a lot of brave and strong and smart men and women. I'm not questioning that at all. It's just like we live in a society where the left is insane and the right are feminists, and they don't even know they're feminists. I'm conservative. You're a feminist. I love Trump. Okay, whatever, feminist. I get it. Yeah, you like Trump, but you're still a feminist to me. Why? Because you think like a feminist. I don't know what to tell you. It's like, let's go to the police. I like, men and women police officers, cool, but it's like men are physically faster. Like every aspect of what it would take to be a good police officer. Obviously, there's some fatties on the police force that are not good at anything, but it's like men are better police officers. Men are better security guards. Like some of these security guards are a joke. You got these obese guys who can't walk. You got like, I remember this one apartment complex my friend used to work at. They had like an 80-year-old lady as a security guard. It's like, you might as well just have a cardboard box standing there with a sign saying don't walk in. What's an 80-year-old lady gonna do as a security guard? I like older women and old ladies, and I would never disrespect my elders, but they don't make good security guards. Like, what is this controversial? Is what I'm saying? Like, I thought this was well known, at least on the right, but now this is like some radical controversial statement. I'm not saying that's why the plane flipped over. I'm not saying that had anything to do with it. It could have been a guy, but in general, it's like, can we start to have this conversation? Obviously, DEI is a horrible idea, especially for important things like a pilot. I want the best pilot. I want the pilot that outperforms all the other pilots. I don't want someone who got there because they're trying to get rid of the men, and they are trying to do that. If you look at United posted this big poster. I think it was I forget which airport it was in, but I took a picture of it, and it had a bunch of like minority women, and it was like, oh, the skies are female. And it's like, dude, if a woman of any ethnicity becomes the greatest pilot, then that's what it is. I mean, I would love for them to be successful. It's no disrespect, but it's like, they're in such a rush to get rid of the white guys who are good pilots, which is most of them. And it's like, the future of the skies is female. Why would the future of the skies be female? It doesn't even make sense. It's like the future of chess is female. It's not, though, because men are going to dominate chess forever. And the best woman's not going to barely be able to crack the top 100. The best woman in the world right now can't compete with the top 100 guys. The future of the chess is male. And some females will do well, but men will dominate like they do every single sport, even though it's a mental sport. Because whether it's mental, whether it's physical, men and women are different. There's different biology to them. There's different pros and strengths. It's like the old saying: if you think a fish should run fast, then you'll think a fish is pathetic, or a turtle, oh, it's so slow. But if you look at a turtle in the ocean, it's actually fast because that's where they are faster, or a fish in the ocean. So it's like, if you're comparing a woman, Caitlin Clark is interesting, and I think she's really revolutionizing female sports. Good for her. She earned it. But she's never going to beat LeBron James. So if you're having a competition, she's never going to win. She's never going to be the best. She'll be the best female, which is extraordinarily lower than the bar of the best males. The worst person in the NBA could probably beat Caitlin Clark 11-0 one-on-one. So, what does that mean? These things translate to other things, whether people want to admit it or not. It's just, we're so far down the path that even me saying that with Republicans is apparently like a controversial statement. They're like, what are you talking about? dude, I don't want a bunch of females on a plane taking selfies because they're happy there's no guys on board. That's ego. That's not like safety. It's like, no men here. That sucks. I wish there was one, at least the co-pilot or something. Have a dude somewhere with a lot of experience. Now we're just gonna do it. The future of the skies is female. Can the future of the skies be the best pilots? And if the best pilots are males, can we just admit that and keep it moving, or no? We got to just destroy society real quick because, you know, boomers want to watch Mark Levin and liberals want to watch Rachel Maddow. Oh, be quiet, Anomaly. Mark Levin's on the television. He's going to tell me about China with Tom Cotton, who's currently undermining the Trump administration. Man, they're really sticking it to China. Okay. Oh, shut up, you fascist. I'm watching Rachel Maddow now, and Rachel Maddow told me that, you know, everything is hate speech and everybody in the world is a fascist. Okay. Okay, liberal boomer, whatever. Apparently, all of these things are like wildly controversial now. Pamela Adams, here's a good one, Facebook, probably boomer. You make no sense. You're all over the place, all over. Of course, spelled wrong, because boomers who complain, they just have no spelling. They can't spell. You're so dumb. And it's like they're spelling every word wrong. It's like, did you not graduate 2nd grade? You reek of misogyny. You're a racist, they say. You're sexist. You're xenophobic. Oh, you want to close the border. You're xenophobic. Oh, you think a man is a man and a woman's a woman? You're sexist. You're misogynistic. That's hate speech. That's anti-Semitism. That's climate denial. That's anti-vaxxerism if you don't get 3 mRNA shots. Okay, boomer. No one believes you, except for the people that are as dumb as you. Yeah, it's misogyny. It's misogyny to say that men dominate NASCAR. It's misogyny to say that men dominate chess. It's misogyny to say that men dominate motorsports, that men dominate flying competitions, men dominate. They're better police officers. They make better military members. If it's a war that you're entering, but if it's a selfie stick competition for TikTok, then yeah, sure. Let's diversify a little bit. But if it's not, you know, I don't want, just like I had one guy, I was at a concert one time. I think it was like Tommy Vexed and Struggle Jennings. Tommy asked me to perform and open for them when they came to Orange County, which was awesome. Shout out to Tommy and Struggle, both great guys and friends of mine. I performed, right? And I was backstage, and someone had fallen off a chair. They stood on a chair, and they fell off and smashed their head like on the ground or on the chair. It was pretty brutal. It was bad. I see it happen, so I turn to the security guard or the emergency guy. It's this 400-pound Hispanic guy. God bless him, but he like couldn't get to the emergency spot because he was so fat. And I'm just giving context about him being Hispanic. It doesn't matter what race you are. He just happened to be Hispanic and he was fat. It's like he couldn't do anything. It's like he's there getting paid. Cool. An emergency happens, he's too obese to like get, like I was doing more than he was because it took him 20 times as much time as it took me to get there. Am I supposed to say that makes a good security guard? No, a good security guard is jacked, and if there's a gun involved, someone who's a sharpshooter. It's like not some 80-year-old woman protecting a apartment complex. My friend's apartment complex, they used to have this one 80-year-old Mexican dude who'd watch telenovelas and literally fall asleep. He'd literally fall asleep watching telenovelas. It's like, dude, cars would get robbed at my friend's places all the time. It's like, of course, they got an 80-year-old grandpa watching soap operas in Espanol, asleep. And then the other days, they'd have an old woman. It's like, why even have security at that point? Is that misogynistic? Is that ageism? No, it's just like how the world works. You if people don't care about anything, the quality of everything goes down. Like, let's just make the military, instead of strong jacked guys who are sharpshooters, let's just make it a bunch of fat weak people of all ethnicities and make it diverse so they take selfies and make TikToks, viral videos. I guess if the military is just going to do propaganda, that's a good idea. But if we're actually supposed to fight a war or be prepared for something, probably not the right idea, folks. No? That's misogyny? It's ridiculous. People are so dumb. The boomers, even the Republican ones, they're all feminists. That's why they've lost this country. They're so far gone. Like they lost every sense of conservatism and like what the Bible says. They're like, who cares if woman does this or that? Well, the Bible cares. I mean, I know you don't care about the Bible, and most societies that you benefit off of did care about the Bible and made it the centerpiece of everything, including the interpretation of the U.S. Constitution and the type of people that it was going to serve. But you just let it go for Ozzy Osbourne and demonic rock and roll in the 70s. And, you know, now you guys have it right because you guys progressed so much, right, guys? The progress is just wild. You guys just really showed that. No, you guys lost every ounce of logic, morality, basic human nature, science. You left it behind for, you know, boomer rock and roll and these fake ideas of like Western whatever. And now the country's just falling apart. And it's like the left is insane. And all that boomers want to do, the same ones that destroyed the country, they just want to sit and watch Mark Levin talk about left-wingers because it's palatable. It's like, yeah, the left-wingers took it too far. Well, you also took it too far. So instead of correcting course and realizing what you did wrong, it's easier to just sit there and watch the television talk about the other side. And that's what left-wingers do too. It's like the Democrat boomers, they don't want to self-reflect and realize that they ruined the country. They just want to sit and watch Rachel Maddow yell at Stephen Miller and like Steve Bannon for 5 years. Oh, the Jared Kushner and Steve Bannon, and oh my gosh, like Stephen Miller, oh man, oh my gosh. It's like, that's what it is. It's like two delusional groups of people that just don't want to self-reflect and correct course. Someone said that's why men and women need each other too. Absolutely. And that's why marriage was between a man and a woman, because a man and a woman are different genders. They come together, they create a puzzle piece, they put their puzzle pieces in each other, and they create a child. And then it creates the perfect structure to raise a child, a man and a woman, the masculine and the feminine. You know, all these new age spiritual hippie chicks, even though they're feminist, some of them, they're also like spiritual, where they're like, there's feminine energy, there's masculine energy. Even they know that there's a difference between male energy, masculine energy, feminine energy, female. They're different genders. One has a vagina, one has a penis. They stick their puzzle pieces in each other and create a kid. That's why marriage was between a man and a woman. It wasn't to be hateful. And it's like, but I like my gay neighbors. Cool, bro. That's awesome. Everybody knows somebody that they like. You know, I'm not knocking people for their, like, this is not my job. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a sheriff in town. I'm just being honest. It's like there is a reason that things were the way they were. And now that they're not this way, it's like now we live in the world of where things are not this way. And this is what I want to say real quick too. And please let me know what you think about the Russia-Ukraine thing. If you're liberal, God bless you. You know what I'm saying? Awesome. But if you're a conservative and you're like, oh, Mark Levin and Russia and Ukraine, think about this. Russia rejects all the LGBTQ stuff that you complain about. Russia builds churches. Ukraine kicked out Catholics, or I don't know what it was, the one Roman Catholic Church, or I don't even know. It's like they're persecuting them. But also, they started pushing LGBTQ laws. Push it up. Look it up. Everywhere the West goes, I like our country. I love America. I'm a proud American. With that being said, I'm also an honest American. So it's like our country is getting destroyed from within. We're all complaining about it. And then our foreign policy goes overseas and spreads that infectious ideology to these countries. Like Ukraine is a Christian country. Ukraine is a Catholic country. We get there, Zelensky gets there, and all of a sudden they start passing these San Francisco LGBTQ laws. Look it up. And then Russia's going the other way. That's what our foreign policy is trying to do. It's just the Bolsheviks rebranding to both parties, and they're like, I'm liberal, I'm Republican, but we need to infiltrate Ukraine and make them gayer. And then it's like you go to Russia and they're like, nah, I don't want, millions of my people to get killed again like that happened in the 1900s. And people are like, oh my gosh, that's so hateful. Why won't he let in George Soros? Why won't he let in the NGOs? Why won't he let in foreign aid? Why won't he allow us to bankroll a politician to run against him and take over his country and kill his people again? I don't understand why he's so hateful. It's like, that's what we do around the world. We go to these countries, make them less Christian, push these San Francisco hate speech laws. That's what we're doing to Ukraine. Ukraine is significantly shifted since we've gotten intervened. And it's literally the opposite of conservatism. I bring this up all the time too, but before Charlie Kirk got a little bit better, He used to do the same thing with Israel and Palestine. He'd said, Israel has the biggest gay parades in the world, and Palestine doesn't like gay people. What's your job, Charlie Kirk, as a conservative? Are you supposed to go to Palestine and make them gay or something? Like, I get that you are perceiving that they're persecuting gay people too much and you don't like it. So you're a gay activist now, Charlie Kirk, the homosexual activist? Like, I don't get it. You complain about pride parades in America and they're sexualizing the kids, you say, yet you're bragging about them in Tel Aviv and you want to bring them to Palestine. Oh, that's how we beat the left. Oh, you don't even care. It's like, yeah, the left and the right, none of them care about anything because everybody's brainwashed. The left should care about pride parades in Palestine, but they don't because they're brainwashed. And also, Republicans shouldn't want to bring them to Palestine, but they do because they're brainwashed. Both sides are brainwashed. Both sides are being mind controlled by the fake opposition, and nobody wants to admit it. It's so obvious. It's like, I don't like Russia. No offense, but God bless people in Ukraine and Russia, but I don't want to live in Russia. It's not a top 10 place I'd want to visit. I'm not Russian. I have no loyalty to Russia. I'm Polish. I'm Italian. I'm Czechoslovakian. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm American. That's how I was raised. But I'll call a spade a spade. Like, they want to infiltrate Russia. They want to overthrow a leader who likes them, and they want to replace them with a Bolshevik the same way they did in Ukraine. And as the West invades, it gets gayer and less Christian. And as the West invades, people start dying. It's not funny, but I'm just like, that's just what happens. It's like, we invade, and it makes sense where it's like, why would you want to do that? Well, who's doing it? If you realize the people doing it don't have an attachment to either side and they don't mind if the sides kill each other, then it makes a lot more sense. Like, why would someone want to do this with this and this? Because they don't care about Ukrainians and they don't care about Russians. They have no loyalty to either party. And if they invade Ukraine, they can pervert it and destroy it. And then they can use the perverted and destroyed shell puppet country to try to push into the other ones. And I'll tell you right now, as Tom Cotton is, undermining the Trump administration and trying to sell his little China book, this is also, once again, I'm not into communism. I'm vehemently opposed to that as a political system, and I'm not Chinese, and I have zero loyalty to the Chinese people. With that being said, they're going for Russia and China because Russia and China are two countries that are massive that they have not completely infiltrated yet. China does not allow them to take over everything, and Russia does not allow them to take over everything. And that's what these people want to do. They want to take over everything. They want to infiltrate. It's like when you go to China, they have two versions of TikTok. One for the degenerate Americans, that's us. It's like, here, you look at all this weird stuff that's destroying your children's brains. In China, they don't allow that because they don't hate themselves. So they, and I'm not saying that all censorship is good or anything, but we have censorship in America. My American TikTok account got deleted. So people will sit here and say, oh, you're just pro censorship. I'm not. I've been censored by the American version of TikTok that was handed over to Oracle and Larry Ellison years ago by Donald Trump to some extent. But in general, it's like in the Chinese version, they don't let women like show off their bodies. They're not like, they don't want to promote, like, I don't know if whoredom is the right word, probably not, but that, like, they don't want to promote that. They're pushing like sciences and the young men are strong. Like, they're not pushing their kids to be trans. They're pushing their young men to work out and be good at sports. Like, they have this sense of nationalism there where they're like, we want the men to be strong and smart. We want the women to be smart and modest. And in America, they push this version that's just 20 times more degenerate. And this idea, they'll say, oh, that's censorship in China. I got my TikTok deleted. I talked about the pharmaceutical industry. They deleted my account. Talk about foreign policy, delete my account. So we have censorship also. It's just when we tell the truth, we get censored. When they push degeneracy, they get censored. It's not justifying their system. I'm just saying, like, you think Tom Cotton gives a crap about making China free? No, they're trying to take over any country they don't control. They want to do what they did to Ukraine to China and Russia. Those are just bigger dogs. They need that. That's why the whole fight with Taiwan, it's like, that's a Hong Kong, Taiwan, these are countries close to there that America has a presence in that it wants to dominate, which as an American, I get it. I get the geopolitics of it, but we need to be better, and then our invasions, or at least I don't know if I'd call it infiltration, but what we're doing would be more moral. Right now, we're infecting our own country and infecting other countries. So it's like, this is not coming from a praise of Russia or China, but it's like, we need to do the right thing here, and then we can export the right thing. If we're infecting our own people and then we infect Ukraine, like, why would we want to overthrow a leader? Like, Putin is popular in Russia. Like, people that don't even live there, like, we need an election. He'll win an election. A fair election, he'll win. A rigged election in his favor, he'll also win, if that's what he's doing. But the only thing that the West wants is to get somebody that they're bankrolling to run against them. If they can't get the opposition, why would they care about an election there? People really don't know that. And the thing is this too, at a certain point, when you do like free commerce and free trade, the West invades. So by, like, as a reactionary and a like intelligent way to prevent another country from taking over your country, a lot of countries around the world are getting more, I would say, you could call it what you want, authoritarian or whatever, but it's like, if you have a fork in the road, it's not justifying it, it's just the reality of the situation. I'm just analyzing it. You go this way and you open up everything, and then America takes over your country and destroys your people. Or you go this way and you crack down on a lot of things, but at the same time, things get better. Which way do you go? A good example of that's more tolerable to my audience would be Bukele of El Salvador. They call him an authoritarian. They call him a dictator. Oh, this guy's, he's abusing his power. He's throwing too many people in jail. It went from the murder capital of the world to one of the safer places in the world. It's the greatest achievement in modern history from almost any president. I will go on the record to say that. A top 5 achievement of modern history is Bukele taking over El Salvador, the murder capital of the entire planet, and then making it into a place that's safer than American cities. It's one of the greatest modern leader achievements. He's one of the best leaders in the world. He's an authoritarian. You can call him what you want. He's not. But at the same time, it's like, he saw the problem. Either I sit on my hands and do nothing, or I fix the problem. He fixed the problem. It's the same thing with these other countries. It's like, they're doing this, they're doing that. What do you want them to do? Let George Soros and his band of NGOs and other people, because George Soros is not the only one, left-wing NGOs, right-wing NGOs, Western aid fronts that are really just there to take over the country. Is that what they should do? Is that freedom? That's freedom and democracy, right? Letting the West completely take over your country, establish a puppet leader, destroy your country, suck out the morality in your country, and get people killed. Is that what they should do? Is that the moral answer? Yeah, that's free. This is the democracy they're selling us in this country and in every other country. Liberals are even now saying that they think this election was stolen. Like, after ridiculing Republicans for 10 years, 5 years, 4 years, being like, the election can't be stolen, that's hate speech, that's insurrection. And I understand January 6th is different from just challenging the election, but in general, what I'm saying is, now Democrats are like, I think the computers were rigged. Like, they're just copy pasting what Republicans were saying and what they told you not to say, and now they have all these grandiose ideas. So it's really fascinating. I'm gonna read a few, and I'm gonna keep this under an hour. Someone said, Trump trying to be good. He's trying to do good work, but they're trying to stop him. And I don't care what people think. Mark Levin is fake opposition. I'm right. I don't care. I don't care how many boomers. Dude, you don't understand the great one. You're brainwashed. You've learned fake history. You've learned fake republicanism. You're feminist, getting mad when I post about the, male dominating sports. These people they've ruined the country, and they just sit there and they're like, dude, he's the great one. Great at subverting Republicans, sure. Great at subverting Americans into destroying themselves. Great at making Americans think perverting the world and pushing policy that destroys European countries is somehow good for you. It's not. And I'll even say this too, although I probably shouldn't, but I will, because I believe it. If you look at what's going on in this country, because of so much fake opposition Republicans, like Republicans, especially over the age of 40, they're completely brainwashed on our foreign policy. Completely. Like, irredeemable, to the point where they're never going to learn. but they think they're fighting Hamas in Palestine, right? To some extent they are with their taxpayer dollars, sure. But they think that they're going to beat Palestine, and then it's just going to be really good for America because Palestine's gone and they're the terrorists. And that, even though when you look at any terrorist in the Middle East like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, there's weird patterns about them that you notice. One being that we're funding rebels who work with them. The other being that ISIS, why don't you do your research and find out there's one country, at least not in the world, but there's a country in the Middle East that ISIS has never attacked. And when they did attack them, they apologized. Go figure out who that is. But anyway, and then there's also articles talking about Netanyahu at one point elevating Hamas because, you know, that was his political strategy at the time. Once again, it's not hate speech, mainstream articles you can look up. And I'm not saying that he's working with them now, but there's documentation that he elevated them. But in general, if you look there, Republicans are being brainwashed to think, oh, when we defeat Palestine, you know, there's going to be peace and blah, blah, blah. Hopefully, sure. You know, I hope so. But America is getting Palestined. America has already been Palestined. They're just not dropping bombs on you. They're not bombing you like they're bombing the Palestinian women and children and people, not just the terrorists, but the innocent people who live there and who've lived there for over 100 years now. They're Palestining America. They're not doing it with bombs. They're doing it with credit card usury. They're doing it with Federal Reserve inflation. They're doing it with television propaganda. They're doing it with open borders. They're doing it with opioids and fentanyl. You're being Palestined. You just don't know it. You're just so brainwashed that you don't even know that you're being Palestined. It's not like, oh, we're going to beat them and then everything's... No, you're getting Palestine. They're killing you just with other things. Like, and I'm not saying they're doing it necessarily. I'm just saying our country's being Palestine. Like opioids, fentanyl, subversive racial propaganda on every television station, through every sports league. Who do you think's doing all of that? There's some new, Jesus movie where some female black actress is playing her. I haven't even looked into it because at this point I don't even care. But I wonder who's producing that movie. I wonder who's producing that blasphemous movie about Jesus or whatever. It's like we're being destroyed. We're being destroyed from within. We're being destroyed from abroad. It's just Republicans are so brainwashed and brain tangled by fake opposition, 20 years of believing people that are destroying them, that they can't detach. It's like Stockholm Syndrome, the same way the left-wingers have it. Someone said I'm going a little off the deep end. I'm right. What do you think it is when they literally flood your country with migrants, open the borders, use all the television stations to tell you that you're going to be the minority soon and you have to like it or you're a racist, kill millions of your people with fentanyl and opioids, like literally just people are dropping dead, these companies. One of the companies gets caught in court and they found out that they knew that they were bad for people and they still were pushing them. This is all obvious research. What do you think this all is? You think this is for your best interest? You think this is so you could lose weight or have a little bit of a pain, you know, the pain goes away when you get your tonsils taken out or something, and you know they just give you pills for a few days? No, they're Palestining you. You're being Palestined through the drug market, through the media propaganda, through both parties, through inflation, through credit card usury loans. You're being robbed. You're being Palestined. You just don't even know it. Some people do, but some people don't. Male Shark, he's talking about Mark Levin. Someone said they still want to be sending our taxpayer dollars to a sexual installed actors, America first. Yeah, it's like, I like Donald Trump, but I really support Ukraine. We know why you support Ukraine, because Ukraine is a planned Bolshevik puppet state that the West is using to destroy Europeans. Oh, there, I said it. Now what? I said it. That's what they're doing. They're destroying certain European countries with Western taxpayer dollars with a Bolshevik plant who doesn't care about Ukrainians or Russians, just like the Bolsheviks killed millions of people in the 1900s. Now they're doing it in a different form. Am I not supposed to notice this? Am I not supposed to read articles in history? Am I just supposed to listen to Sean Hannity to get my opinions? And the same thing they're doing over there, they're doing to us. And we're doing it to ourselves through these idiots that are completely compromised. And maybe they're compromised by money. maybe they're just brainwashed like all the other Fox News boomers, because some people don't even realize that. They think, like, obviously politicians are taking money, but it's like, look at how many people's parents still believe Sean Hannity. It's like they're not getting paid to do it. They're just brainwashed. Not everybody's getting bribed. A lot of people are. And not everybody's getting blackmailed. And, you know, I would say, like, blackmailed. I don't know what other word I was going to use. Some people are getting blackmailed, but some people are just dumb and mind controlled. It's like, same with liberals. Every time there's like a liberal event, people will be like, George Soros is funding that. Not always. I mean, sometimes he funds certain things, yes, and it's transparent. But like people who just watch Fox News all day, they just say, George Soros, George Soros. Yeah, he's involved in a lot of stuff, absolutely. But once you brainwash a population, you don't have to do everything all the time. It'll be done by the people who are just so far gone. It's like Yuri Bezmenov said with the, what's it called? The demoralization and the destabilization and to destroy a nation. You destroy the minds of the masses and then you just go away and they destroy themselves. Yeah, you could bankroll this and that here or there, but it's like everything is not being bankrolled right now. It's just you got brainwashed people doing things that people that don't have control over their own brain have. Someone mentioned Lex Friedman. While he's brought up, there's a clip going viral of Tim Dillon talking about Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and saying that they had ties to Mossad. That's what, you know, Tim Dillon was saying, right? And according to this viral clip, Lex Friedman's response was, I just think Jeffrey Epstein was an individual. He said that when he talked to Ye too. Ye said, I noticed all these groups, and he goes, you know, no, there's no groups. There's no organization. It's just individuals. Okay, you can get away with saying that to Ye because people will believe that. But when you say it about Epstein, and maybe Lex Friedman's right. Maybe Lex Friedman is right, and maybe people really are that stupid. It's possible because, you know, these people have millions of followers. But it's like, are people that stupid to think that Jeffrey Epstein was just some radical lone wolf? Oh, he's just an individual. He totally has no connection to any government. It's just an individual who was just doing things. Like, is anybody that dumb? Nobody's that dumb, but they'll watch something like that and be like, oh, I still believe him. I've listened to him for 10 years. It's like, really? You know, like that, like, yeah, he's just one guy with, you know, it's just, I'm sure it's just anti-Semitism and hate speech to say that, you know, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein worked with anybody, right? Because they just so happen to be that ethnicity too. But it's just hate speech because, you know, they're just two random individuals that have no connections to any group and ever. Right. It's just laughable. But when you talk about this sort of stuff too, whether it be black or Jewish or white or Asian or Christian or Muslim, in my opinion, some people are actually doing too much and being nasty about it, right? On all sides, there's a lot of nastiness going on, and I don't like it. With that being said, there's a difference between, oh, you're being hateful, which everyone, if you talk about race, they just say you're being hateful. If you talk about religion, they just say you're being hateful. There's also differences between races and religions and different ideologies. So if you want to understand motive, you need to understand race and religion. Like in South Africa, race is playing a huge role in certain political parties, and they're talking about white farmers and the history of, you know, apartheid, etc. So it doesn't make you a racist to notice that. It's like you can't understand South African history or the South African present without bringing race into the equation. Doesn't make you a racist. It's just, that's literally what's happening. You can't possibly analyze it without talking about race. When it comes to the Middle East, you can't possibly analyze the Middle East without talking about religion. Some people talk about Islam. Have you ever heard me call someone an Islamophobe? Never, not once. Why? Because it's a made-up word that just suggests you're scared of Islam if you talk about it. You might not be scared of it. You might just be talking about it. And the difference between Islam and Christianity or Islam and Judaism doesn't necessarily mean you're hateful talking about the differences between two religions. If you could talk about white, if you could talk about black, if you could talk about South African, if you could talk about Islam, how come you can't talk about Judaism or Jewish ethnicity? You know, nobody wants to talk about that because when it comes to that, it's just an individual and it's just a thought and you're just an anti-Semite. maybe you are, I guess, you know, if you're a dickhead and maybe you're just a bad person or maybe you're mean, but also like maybe there are some things going on. Like, is it hateful to say that Israel has a certain ideology? They have certain rules. A Christian soldier wanted to put a cross on his gravestone and they wouldn't allow him. Why? Because they're Jewish. And, you know, Israel, the religion of Israel is Judaism. And they're so strong about that they don't like Christians the same way a lot of these Christians like them. They just don't, you know, they're like, no, that wouldn't be able to happen in America. But over there, they're totally fine with it because they have a religion and an ethnic group that they care about more than yours. Sorry. But you're not allowed to talk about it because that makes you hateful. It's the same thing with, you know, certain rules they have with citizenship. How do you get a citizenship in Israel? There's a birthright. You can get a free trip and a citizenship for being ethnically Jewish. Okay, I'm not opposed to that. It makes sense. Like they want, but how many people from that country and of that ethnicity are writing in the United States press telling people of my ethnicity that you're not allowed to think that way and that makes you a racist. And if you think that way, it makes you a supremacist and a hater. But you can have a country where you fly people out based on their ethnicity and give them a citizenship. But in America, we have to take in people from 50 different countries or else we're a racist. We have to take in the refugees from the war that we funded for your country. Yeah, that's an op-ed in Wall Street Journal from the Likud party. They wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal and said, America and Europe should take these refugees. You took the other ones. Why not take these ones? That's an op-ed. Go look it up. Wall Street Journal, American right-wing press written by a foreign country saying, you guys take in the refugees, you stupid Trump supporters. Not literally saying that, but you dumb Republicans. You take them in. You're our greatest ally. Okay, then take in all our refugees since we're so great. I'm sorry. It's like there's things happening for certain reasons and you're not supposed to talk about it, and you're not allowed to talk about it. Like, why was Trotsky in New York City? Which publication? I just showed people. Which publications were pushing Leon Trotsky? Which ones? Can you say it? A Jewish socialist publication. That's what the Times of Israel said. But if I say it, it makes me an anti-Semite. But when the Times of Israel says it, it's just journalism. Saying that Trotsky flew to the United States, went to New York, was well loved by the Jewish community there because they were pushing socialism in America and had a press rivaling the New York Times. And then he flew back and it helped inspire him kill millions of people in the Bolshevik Revolution. But you're not going to learn this on Fox News. You can't, they won't allow you. It's not real opposition. They're not going to tell you this on television. They're not going to tell you this on most podcasts, to be honest, because it's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's right there waiting for you to learn. And why does that matter? I don't know. When Christians and Muslims fight historically, and why does it matter? Because I don't know, because they're different. Why, when Christians and Muslims fight in Nigeria, why does it matter? Apparently it matters to these people because they keep fighting all the time, because there's differences in ethnicity and religion. And sometimes people have different ideologies and different belief systems, and it causes them to fight or conquer or, you know, start a war. That's just human history. Like there's nothing hateful about noticing. But the problem is they want you to just say, well, socialism, socialism, socialism. The left, the left, the left. Yes, the left, socialism, left wing. Yes, correct. What else is it though? Everybody who talks about socialism and makes documentaries, all these documentarians, they don't want to mention this. They don't want to talk about this. They'll do a documentary about socialism and they won't even mention this angle of it because this angle of it will get them blacklisted in the Republican community. But it's real history, and it's such real history that even publications overseas are writing articles about it. Like, it's all obvious. And the reason I brought it up today is because if you want to talk about our history in America is a British Revolution. Our history is the Second Amendment and the First Amendment and the Founding Fathers and the Native Americans and the Black people who were here and the Civil War and slavery. And, you know, like, that's our history. In America, we have a very fascinating and complex history that involves multiple groups in this country. When you go over to Russia, if you care to study history, just like you can't talk about American history without talking about this and talking about that and talking about this, because it's all real, you can't talk about Russian history without the bullshit. Hold on. Sorry about that. If you're going to sit there and say, why don't they want to replace Putin? With who? With you want the people that planted a Bolshevik plant in Ukraine? With the West, the same country that inspired the Bolshevik Revolution, that killed millions of their people, everyone besides America, that's what we're doing in Ukraine. So why would Russian people want that again? Why would Russian people want a Zelensky to fight them until they put a Zelensky in charge over Putin? Why would they want it? Why would they want that? Who wants that? People that are brainwashed by Western press, people that listen to Sean Hannity and Mark Levin and these right-wingers who are pushing the Ukraine angle. It's so obvious. And then people go, you should really listen to him. He got the vaccine. Oh, he's so much smarter than you. That's what you think. You think he's so much smarter because he's been sold to you as this guru when he's really just fake opposition, coaxing you into another war to try to push a country back into a Bolshevik revolution. You just haven't figured it out. Nobody that got the vaccine and regrets it now, oh, I can't believe I got it. You're not better than me. You're not smarter than me. Like, if you couldn't figure that out, that's like an IQ test right there. You couldn't figure it out. Compare my journalism during COVID to Mark Levin's journalism. Compare my journalism, by the way, with no team, with no makeup artist, with no editing team, with none of that. Compare it to Sean Hannity. Compare it to Mark Levin. Compare it even to Tucker Carlson in some cases. Compare it to anybody. Incredibly not humbly, because I could just pretend like I'm being humble right now, but I'm not. So I'm not going to be like these people, they win a Super Bowl and they're like, I'm so humbled by winning the Super Bowl. How are you humbled by winning the Super Bowl? There's nothing humble about being the best athlete in the world. Humbling is when you fall down the stairs and hurt yourself the next day. That's humbling. Oh, I won the Super Bowl, but I'm still depressed. Or I won the Super Bowl and I still have bad days. You know, that's what humbling is. It's not humbling to like, I just won the MVP. It just humbles me. No, humbling is when it falls off your shelf and cracks and you're like, damn it, that's humble. That whole rant was to say what I'm going to say is not humble. I think I did some of the best, if not the best, journalism during COVID. If the Pulitzer Prize was actually fair, I think I deserve it. I think I did the best journalism at that time. And all the people who got the Pulitzer Prize were subversive propagandists who literally lied to the world. So it's like, I don't look at people who lied to you during COVID. I don't look at people who got tricked. I don't look at people who got the vaccine. These are not my superior idols. These are idiots. These are puppets. These are either inferior journalists or just people that are regime liars pretending to be, Trump supporters. Like, this is not, people can think what they want, but that's what I think. Someone says sometimes righteous indignation is necessary. I don't know what's necessary. I'm just saying it. There's times where I've done work that's subpar, but during COVID, I did the best. I deserve a Pulitzer. And these people that lie us into war after war, they're not better than me. Oh, but you don't understand him. Yeah, he's a good lawyer and he understands constitutional law. That's great, but Ben Shapiro talks really fast, so people that are not that smart think that Ben Shapiro's smart. But in reality, Ben Shapiro, look at his reporting during COVID. He's crying about Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan's so anti-Semitic. Oh my gosh, he's telling people about Bill Gates. Oh my gosh, he doesn't want black people to get the vaccine. Why does Ben Shapiro want black people to get the vaccine so bad? Yeah, he just really cared so much about it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe Louis Farrakhan. Oh my gosh, anti-Semites. And then the people who listen to him are like, oh, Louis Farrakhan, the anti-Semite, we can't listen to him. It's like, I don't care who you listen to, but Ben Shapiro did some of the most egregious, pathetic, and subversive reporting during COVID. And then he comes out in this little Oshkosh Bagosh fake NASCAR jacket, and he's like, oh my gosh, I got lied to. I got lied to by the government. I got lied to by Pfizer. I got lied to. I mean, it's not my fault. I mean, they tricked me. I mean, who would have known that Pfizer would ever trick me? I mean, dude, it's not my fault. I mean, guys, come on. I mean, I'm really, really smart. I'm smarter than an anomaly. Trust me. I mean, I mean, I talk fast. I want to get us into wars. I mean, come on, I'm really smart. I mean, obviously I'm smarter than Emily. He has long hair and he looks like a surfer. I mean, I'm an intellectual. I mean, I'm Ben Shapiro. I mean, come on, I'm a genius. Come on. I mean, yeah, I got all of COVID wrong, but you have to understand, I didn't get it wrong. The government got it wrong, and I believe the government. I mean, it's not my fault for believing the government. Who doesn't believe Pfizer and the government? Anybody with a brain, a computer, and 2 years of experience in journalism could known that Pfizer is not to be trusted and the government's not to be trusted, especially with the pharmaceutical industry. So people that are dumb are like, oh, anomaly, he just made a mistake. By trusting the government and Pfizer and then taking no accountability, saying it's not his fault because basically he got tricked by the government. Oh, sorry, guys, I just started 15 wars and injected myself 50 times. It's not my fault. I thought that Pfizer was really telling the truth this time. I mean, you know, they only have a massive lawsuit where it was one of the biggest lawsuits in history that they had to pay out knowingly lying about a drug. And, you know, the Sackler family just, you know, destroyed the country with opioids and admitted that, you know, in court, it came out that they actually knew that they were bad and they covered it up. But, you know, these are really trustworthy people here. I mean, you know, the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act and the PrEP Act and the history of chronic illness and the fact that everybody's obese and on pharmaceuticals now. I mean, this just reeks confidence. So, you know, when I watch Travis Kelce do a Pfizer commercial, I'm just like, yeah, that's what I trust. A strong athlete injecting himself with a, you know, a product that the government bankrolled or essentially bought by the hundreds of millions. They'll tell me the truth about this. But I'm the bad guy, right? I'm the bad guy because it's like, I know that these people are not good at their jobs. But they're so good. You don't understand. They just had Tom Cotton on yesterday. The Tom Cotton that is currently undermining Donald Trump, the guy you like. You like Donald Trump. And Tom Cotton's trying to stop his America First choices. And he's getting paraded around Fox News selling his China book. Of course he is. Because that's how easy it is to trick a Republican. You're like, the left sucks in China. And they're like, oh my gosh, when are you speaking a turning point? Oh my gosh, you're really smart. It's like, that's literally all you have to do to trick a Republican. You literally just have to do, the left is bad. Just go look at ChatGPT, Vivek GPT Aswami. You know, it's like his Twitter account. He's like, I'm at a NASCAR event. Patriotism, beers, and hot dogs. I'm just like you. I'm wearing a Confederate jean jacket or whatever you wear. America, there's only two genders, folks. It's like these people, it's like that's all you have to say. You're like, China bad and two genders good. Oh my gosh, dude, I just saw him on Jesse Waters. I mean, he really crushed. I mean, he talked about China for 10 years. George Soros also complains about China. Do you like George Soros? Go Google the article that George Soros wrote in the Wall Street Journal about China and Xi Jinping saying he's the biggest enemy to open societies. And then go look at the tweet from Vivek Ramaswamy in 2022, where Vivek is praising George Soros on his op-ed about China. Wow. All it takes is criticizing China. I guess you guys love George Soros then, because he has the exact same idea about China as Vivek does and Tom Cotton does. Isn't that just fascinating? And that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong that you have to play opposite day with George Soros. It's just like, have you ever seen a Republican retweet a George Soros op-ed and be like, "That, yeah, way to go, George Soros. This is the way we fight the enemies of open societies." What do you mean by open society? I like closed border nations, not open societies. What do you mean by that? Open every country so no country has any diversity and every country's destroyed? True diversity is when a nation closes its borders, allows people to visit and go on vacation, and maintains an identity that is indistinguishable from the rest of the world. Diversity is not when you flood every European country with migrants and then tell them it's diversity. Meanwhile, Africa's not getting more diverse. China's not getting more diverse. Israel's certainly not getting more diverse, yet just Europe has to just, destroy itself. And, that's the only way you could beat the deep state or something. It's like, sure. I'll read one or two more. Someone said, I completely understand your frustration. Slightly frustrated, but also I don't really care. I'm not really going to break a sweat over this today. I'm just being honest. The frustrating part is when so many people don't understand, but that's just the way the world is. I can't make people understand. I'm a lot less frustrated than I used to be. I'm not stressing over it at all. And although it's always better when people agree with you, obviously that's more fun. I can't say I really care that much. I'm disappointed constantly in people, but at the same time, the tides are turning. Like, you know, I'm not really that concerned with it, but yeah, I'm just passionate and I try to be entertaining. Someone said, one thing for certain, you're not brainwashed. I love that. You analyze everything. I'm going to use this as a quick example because it's the truth. I got COVID almost 100% right, and some people got it over 50% wrong. Some of the best journalists on the right got it wrong. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't a mistake. I'm not only am I smart, but I'm analyzing everything. I'm a very honest person. So if something's not adding up, I don't care if Trump said it. I don't care if Ben Shapiro said it or Mark Levin said it or Nancy Pelosi said it. It's not about what other people are telling me. An intelligent person gets to the bottom of things on their own. A stupid person outsources their ideas to Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, or Donald Trump, or Rachel Maddow, or Ben Shapiro. 90% of the Republican base, I'm not trying to be mean, but 90% of the Republican base, they don't know anything. They've never read anything. If they're reading a book, it's a book that someone else wrote about someone else's book. Like, they don't know anything. They export their beliefs to Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, or so they think they know everything because they're listening to people they perceive as smart or that are smart telling them other things. A true intellect will get to the bottom of it on their own. So when it came to the pharmaceutical industry, Ben Shapiro said this, Trump said this, Bobby Kennedy said this person said this, Dr. Shiva said this. Like, there's all sorts of people saying everything. An intelligent person will listen and come to better conclusions than someone they're listening to on TV. And that's what I did, where it's like, I knew all these things because I had researched about the pharmaceutical industry. I knew about pharmaceutical corruption. I knew about the liability shields. I've listened to Bobby Kennedy. I listened to other people similar. And I'm like, that makes sense. And then you listen to Ben Shapiro talk about vaccines. He was, before COVID in January of 2020, he was advocating for mandatory vaccinations. People don't know this because he didn't do that. To Ben Shapiro's credit, he didn't do that during COVID. He was pushing against mandatory vaccinations. And I respect him for that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ben Shapiro. With that being said, people don't know this. There's a video up in January 2020, 2 months before the pandemic, where a lady called in about vaccine mandates and Ben Shapiro advocated for vaccine mandates. He said, if you don't get your kids vaccinated, they shouldn't be allowed to go to school because it's like, you know, it's like pouring toxic sludge into a river that goes to other people. That's not your libertarian freedom to pollute the rest of the kids in school. They need a vaccine. He's totally fine with vaccine mandates. Go find that video. It's still on YouTube. It's good. And whoever the lady who called in, she knew all of her stuff. So it's like this knowledge was out there for everybody. But if you just listen to Trump, you're just hoping that he's doing the right thing, or you're just imagining a world like you don't know about the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. You don't know about the PrEP Act. You don't know about the history of Pfizer and all these things. Like, if you know about that, Trump can't trick you. Ben Shapiro can't trick you. Mark Levin can't give you bad advice. Dan Bongino, you know, he got the vaccine and said it was the worst decision he ever made. Do you know why Dan Bongino said he got the vaccine? Have you ever listened to Dan Bongino explain why he got the vaccine? His logic, no offense, is like 70 IQ logic. And I feel bad for people who listen to him and export their intelligence from a guy that simple-minded. But God bless Dan Bongino. He's a patriot. I'm just saying, he said, I got the vaccine because Trump put out the vaccine and China, the virus came from China. So I just figured, like, America, Trump, the American vaccine will beat the Chinese virus. And I trusted our country more than China. Dude, that's like Neanderthal level thinking compared to my analysis. Not trying to make fun of the guy, but it's like these people probably can't stand me because of what I'm saying now. But I'm also superior to them in reporting and the information I'm putting out and the way that I'm thinking. And I'm not saying that to be rude. It's just the truth. I don't think like a Neanderthal. Let me inject myself with an American vaccine so I could beat a Chinese virus. I mean, you might as well at that point be like a caveman. Like, that's how I look at him. No offense. He's really a patriot. He's right about a lot of things, but it's like caveman analysis for dumb people.
This game is probably a tuber if I don't pick it. I'll probably pick the earlier game that I got first, to be honest. But just in case, I just want to say sorry for having an anomaly going on in the background. I'm collecting babies for some reason. For some reason. I'm collecting babies. I actually have to turn anomaly off so I can focus. I got Lopunny carry. So, look, it's doing damage from back here. No way. Bulk up's interesting. I don't know how to use it on. It's Gara time though. Now we don't have space because I bought this stupid thing. So we have to get rid of one of these clowns. At least he has a synergy, you know? And Dragon's probably easier to slide, but Artificial is so cracked. I'm the Artificial King. Let's see what we get, I guess. We haven't dropped the game with this setup, dude. Fighting human, yeah. It's good. It's pretty good. Still no upgrades, no babies. I'm here. Dragon Fire. Okay, let's take a Fighting Dragon portal, because we might want to pivot to Gibble. Dragon Gibble, I'm not sure. Dude, type null. Come on, man. What am I gonna do? Not take type null? Magmarizer. What do you want me to do? Not take the type null, dude? Put it on you for now. Razor Claw. Put it on you for now. I'm the Artificial King, man. I gotta take it. I'm the Artificial King, dude. I gotta take it. Nothing left to do with it. Roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 babies. I need this space now. See if we win. We do win. Type null is so good too. I like it. I effing like it. Oh my gosh, we need Stuffle. No, like we need Stuffle. 2, 3, 4, 5. They can't stop me now. They can't stop me. And dang it. I need Stuffle and one more normal type, but it's okay. At least he's fighting. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we just replaced Stuffle with Chimchar. Surely. We don't get human anymore though. So maybe we teach
bulk up to my chop. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. We don't want that. We don't want any of this. Ooh, we're in a fighting region. Fighting normal too is perfect. Is that Tepig? Tepig? Fighting wild? Wait, we're running the... This is just like the video I just watched. What do we want? We want Scofflins. Please. The baby pivot, bro. The baby 5 pivot. It's so good. Still think we put it on you. Guys, we should be done with Chimchar. Dude, Tepig is actually huge. And we can run a Fury-mon now. Tepig is huge. It's fighting type. I actually had to turn Anomaly off so I can focus. He was talking about, you know, the usual corrupt government. People trust the fake news. It's funny. We don't want that. We might want this, I guess. Or do we want Palmy? This has to be better, right? Man, I want Stuffle. We're gonna keep slow rolling because we're winning. Oh, we have to upgrade though. And they gave me Breloom. Oh my gosh! And we're running artificial. What if we had Toxic Orb, dude? That is so good. You know, Pedito runs fighting human. I run fighting artificial. Yup. If we had Macho Brace, that would be so good for type normal. We actually want you in too. It's Mewtwo time, so let's just save our money for a little bit. We can roll once. Bruh. Whichever one we get first, we just swap. I didn't get one. I actually just don't want this. It's electric type. We might have to pivot. But they're not giving me anything. And we got fire coming up, huh? Wrong chips. Like, we can't make a chip with this stuff. We need a fire chip. Kind of. The only time I wanted to see normal Scarf and they don't give me the damn normal Scarf, bro. Yeah, he's running Ghost. I should just run like this. I don't want to play that. Oh, his fighting team's better than mine. This fighting team is better than mine. We need helmet on. Turn Ghost and our normal on, but still, it's only stage 1. Oh, we want it. So we want it. Yeah, fighting fire. It's just better than you know. Like I haven't found either of these. Isn't that crazy? Well, now they're common, so like they're not gonna show up. I don't think. Yeah, we want Stuffles, bro. We gotta get to Epic. Team 1. Titan only, yeah. Oh my gosh. What do we even want? We need like shades, more attack. Oh, we gotta go last, dude, because I'm crushing. I'm gonna keep power leveling, actually. Yay. Why'd they give me these? Why'd they give me these? What the heck? What did they do? What did they just do? Oh. Dude, we could just make me wear. Like, why wouldn't I just do that? Yeah, dude. Muscle band. Here you go, buddy. Go crazy. Go crazy. Power hug. Deal special damage. Lock and paralysis. Okay, so we want like mana scarf on him probably. That seems good. Oh, we're losing the grass. We're losing the grass. I should have upgraded this guy. We're losing the fucking grass. Well, we're gonna find more of him, so. Dude, this Lopunny's buff. This Lopunny is so buff. If we took out more units, this Lopunny could have did it. No cap. We got Toxic Orb. Wait, you're joking. How is this not good? We need fighting 4. Oh my god, we need fighting 4. Wait, how is this not good? Are you joking? We actually got Toxic Orb. He died. He died! Fuck. We won still. Wait, we actually got Toxic Orb on the Breloom. Are you joking? We need a stone for him to evolve him, probably. Okay, we're good. We're actually super good. How do you put this guy back in, bro? We have to put him back in to get the normal ghost back on. Or at least normal for him, for these guys. But I gotta get fighting in. I need fighting artificial. I need iron hands. I need iron hands to replace this guy. I actually need iron hands to fix my team. I actually need iron hands to fix my team. This portal is so important. Fighting artificial. We need iron hands. It's on the other side. Please. No! 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 They took all the portals. No! I need fighting artificial. We didn't get it. We didn't get it. Now I'm scared. Mana Scarf. No cap, I want to put it on Beware. But that's not good. We need it on like you. We need to get Fighting 4 back in. Damn, dude, Genesec's in the back fucking us up. What stone do we want? We don't want grass, we want fairy stone. I guess it's the only thing we can turn on, or psychic. Oh, we're losing. This is so bad. It's so bad. Dude. We're gonna lose artificial. Dude, we don't even get steal off of this though. I don't know how long we can hold on. Is Varloon dead? Yeah, probably. No. Come on, guys. Oof. Oof. This Pheromosa got us bad. We don't put you in, right? Dark. Oh, fuck. We don't want dark chip, not really. Maybe protective pads. Maybe protective pads. I think it's just so bad though. That's not what you want. More fear. Getting too artificial is really tough, actually. We lose it. get toxic orb. It's not happening. Our possession is kind of bad too. How does every team beat us? Damn, dude. Every team beats us. Our position is actually really bad. I don't know who to put in. Why? Oh my gosh, we're not evolving our type mode. Like, if we don't live, it doesn't matter. So I'd rather be at max level. Dude, it's the Genesect team too. This is so nasty. GG's. He has it, dude. He has my Doublade. Dude, I'm just one off artificial the whole time. Dude, we could have had Toxic or Breloom. We could have had Toxic or Breloom. But I mean, I guess Lopunny can only carry you so far, yeah. Maybe we abandon Lopunny for what though, dude? For what? Yeah, the Magearna set did a lot better, dude. I like this Magearna set actually. Yeah, we abandoned Lopunny so we can put our items on our artificial stuff. So like she didn't even have an item for Type-Null. I can't believe I couldn't evolve Type-Null. We got 4th though. I mean that's good placing still. Tough. Relegate 2 elo. I thought my team was pretty good, but the grass team they scale more, you know. Beware can only get you so far. Dude, he got much shell. That's why I couldn't find it, dude. I was trying to get this, I couldn't find it. I never got Embor. We got this a little too late. At least for the late game. We beat the Pheromosa team. This team was tough, too. This team was actually tough. I can't believe they beat us. But yeah, it's like artificial. And then it's like when I take artificials out, I'm weakening Type-Null. Okay, but if I was to go fighting 6, right, I have to get rid of. I didn't have the fighting though. Cause he had literally 8 fighting. They took my fighting portal. That's what I needed, the fighting portal so bad. The artificial fighting portal. I needed it so bad. I needed Iron Hands, bro. My guy. It is not 319. $319.
It's better than Rachel Maddow for sure, and he's definitely right about some stuff and has good instinct. But it's like it's the most simplistic. Like it's an insult. Listening to people like that is an insult to my intelligence. I'm too smart for that. You know, it makes me dumber. And I'm not saying this to be rude, but it's like these are the type of people that people think are smart. It's like you're listening to a guy who made it the biggest mistake of his life, injecting himself with a COVID vaccine because he thought America beats China. Do you know how much dumber that is than getting into the history of Pfizer, the pharmaceutical lobby, the warp speed of how it worked, the liability shields that they have, the history they had of lying and covering stuff up and corruption? Like, that's a smart analysis of like, I'm not telling people what to do, but I'm intaking all this information, and this is the baseline of how I'm going to make my decisions. I have all this information. Now I'm going to make a smart decision. I took in the information, I gave people the information, and then I didn't get the vaccine because I had the information. When you have the information of Dan Bongino, that's how you think. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't have all the information. It's the same with all of these people. So that's all I'm trying to say is like, if you listen to a lot of these, like you're listening to their logic and they make it sound smart, but to a smart person, it sounds dumb. Like I would be willing to debate any of these people on Ukraine and Russia. And, you know, there's valid point. Like I understand why America would want to fund Ukraine. I understand why America would want to fight Russia. There's economic reasons. There's geopolitical reasons. I know what they know. Like I get their angle of it, but what they're not telling you is the angle that I just told you today about what happened in the Bolshevik Revolution. About like if people are not willing to at least tell you what, you know, RFK is willing to tell you, or Dave Smith or Tucker Carlson for that matter, they're not giving you the full story. If you get the full story and say, I want to bankroll Ukraine and Russia, or bankroll Ukraine to fight Russia, sure, you can come to that conclusion, especially if you're Ukrainian and you have loyalty to Ukraine. But the reason that these people don't give you that information is because if you got that information, you would make a decision that went against the decision they're telling you to make. Like this is not even really that controversial. The 2014 revolution in Ukraine was Western funded and their way of infiltrating Ukraine even further. Zelensky is the most obvious, most fantastical puppet in modern history. I mean, like I said, it should be a movie how he got into office by portraying the president on television and tricking Ukrainians into voting for him by being a You think this all just spontaneously happened through democracy? That Kvartal 95 just happened to work with Kolomoisky, who just happened to put on a television show that just so happened to have, you know, Zelensky as the president of Ukraine, that just so happened to be the most popular show on TV, that just so happened to, you know, put his hat in the race for president. And then his production studio just so happened to also double as a political studio. And a lot of the same producers and people in the studio ended up working in his administration. I mean, that would be like NBC bankrolling Rachel Maddow, putting Rachel Maddow on television as the president of the United States for 5 seasons. Then Rachel Maddow wins president, and then NBC becomes her political party. And then most of her cabinet members, or a good portion of them, are from the media corporation that bankrolled her to the presidency. It's one of the greatest stories in modern history, Zelensky's rise to power. It's fascinating. Do they tell you that on Fox News? Do they tell you about the 2014 revolution? Do they tell you that ethnic Russians and Ukrainians, for that matter, have been slaughtered, whether it be the Holodomor or the Bolshevik Revolution? Of course not, because if they told you about those, like really told you about those and really told you who did it, you would have a totally different worldview. You would not be wanting to watch them or think what they think or do what they do. So they don't tell you these things because it's like they just say it's hate speech, or it's, you know, it's just someone being hateful. It's like, yeah, you can't talk about Ukraine and Russia without talking about race. And if you could talk about Ukrainians and Russians and the different ethnic groups in that region, why can't you talk about the people who were the Bolsheviks? Why can't you talk about the people who did the Holodomor? Why can't you talk about Trotsky and Stalin and Marx and the fact that they flew to New York City and got press from a certain ethnic group that was pushing socialism in America? How come you can't talk about that? You can talk about everything else, but you can't talk about that. They don't want you to talk about that, and they don't want you to know that, because once you know that, then nothing they say makes sense. Their entire shtick of like, we just care about democracy. Then call for an election in Ukraine and Russia. Russia's probably had an election more recent than Ukraine. I'm not sure off the top, but I would guess that they had an election in Russia faster than they've had one in Ukraine. Zelensky's holding out on elections. Let's come to the table and say, we care about democracy. You have an election and you have an election. They don't care about the election in Ukraine. They don't want an election in Ukraine because they have their puppet in Ukraine. The Bolshevik Western plant is leading Ukraine. Why would you have an election and risk losing the country back to the Ukrainians or back to people that are sympathetic towards Russia? No. So here's what I'm trying to say is when they say, well, is Putin going to have a real election in Russia? Do you care about real elections in Russia? Do you really care? If you care about real elections in Russia, why don't you care about real elections in Ukraine? You care about both? Okay, let's go back to Russia. Let's be honest. Do you want a real fair election, or do you want a Western democracy election in which foreign countries bankroll the opposition president and try to take over the country? Which one do you think Mark Levin wants? Which one do you think Adam Kinzinger wants? Which one do you think Lindsey Graham wants? Which one do you think, these people want? Come on. It's obvious. They don't like, you think they'd be totally happy with a 100% fair election where the Russians decide their outcome. No, because the Russians are going to choose Putin. They want to bankroll the other side. These are people that have established puppet politicians over the course of the last 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years when it comes to the U.S. foreign policy and the people controlling it. They've overthrown dozens of countries. So bring in all that, just like with COVID, bring in all the information. They've overthrown dozens of countries. That's all they do. Lindsey Graham, Adam Kinzinger, the people that they work for, and the people that they work for worked for, and that 50, 60, 70 years of foreign policy. They've been overthrowing countries by the dozens. But you think in Russia they don't want to do that? They just want a fair election? If you believe that, you're an idiot. But the thing is, people aren't thinking. They're exporting their thoughts to people that they consider experts, the same way that the left does. The left says, oh, they're experts. They're experts at what? They're experts at taking money from the pharmaceutical industry. They're experts at working for the government and then going to the Pfizer editorial board or the Pfizer board of advisors. They're experts at selling our country out. They're experts at doing backdoor deals. They're experts at covering up data trials that don't benefit them. They're experts at covering up side effects. They're experts at lobbying politicians to get rid of liability shield or to give them liability shields so they don't have liability for that stuff. Yeah, they're experts, all right. They're just not experts at the truth, and they're not experts at science. They're experts at perverted science that has become politics. What do you think these Fox News hosts are? What do you think these mainstream Republicans are? You think they're experts at foreign policy? No, they're experts at telling you one side of the equation so that you support the war they want you to support. They're not going to tell you in a foreign country that the leader that you're worshiping actually funded the opposition at one point and elevated the opposition, because you're watching a movie when you watch Fox News. It's the good guys versus the bad guys. We're beating up the terrorists. If you open a real history book and you do 20 minutes of research outside of the propaganda on Fox News, you'll find out two things. In the Middle East, we've funded terrorists. They've admitted to funding terrorists, and often they fund the terrorists to overthrow a country, and then the terrorists become an issue. In other cases, you could find out who the terrorists are in attacking. If these are terrorists that hate everybody, why are they apologizing for attacking a country? Why are they apologizing for attacking one country? It's so obvious. Like, it's so obvious, it's laughable. But it's only not obvious when people are so addicted to someone that they consider an expert. I've been watching Sean Hannity for 10 years. I've been listening to the Ben Shapiro report. Then you probably never heard anything that I've said today, because the entire apparatus is to prevent you from knowing any of these things. I believe Israel has a right to do whatever it wants ethnically and do whatever it wants with its country. And to be quite frank, when it comes to Israeli elections, I don't care what they do. If Netanyahu has an election, cool. If he stays there for 20 years, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to sit and pretend like I care about every other country. I'm focused on my country. If Israel wants a dictatorship, that's for them and their people to decide. If Ukraine wants Zelensky, I just don't feel like bankrolling it the whole time and $250 billion going to a war. But if they do it on their own, that's up to them. If Russians want Putin, that's cool. If they don't, that's fine. If France wants Macron, that's on them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have my opinions, but it's not my country. I'm not running around the world telling people what to do. Because in my country, I feel like the media is working against me. I know that the mainstream media is working against me. I know that most of the independent media is working against me. And I know that most of the fake Republican plant media is absolutely working against me. So I know that both politicians are being manipulated. I know that our own industries are pushing anti-human propaganda. I know that the sports leagues are controlled by a certain group of people that is just definitely not happening, unless you just notice that it absolutely is, that are pushing racial perversion. And here's the thing. When you get to the ethnicities of who's pushing the racial perversion and why, it starts to seem very hateful, because the truth is hate speech according to people who hate the truth. For example, I've mentioned this many times, but this is very documented. You'll talk about Black Lives Matter. The NAACP for this fact is exactly the same. They're the exact same type of organization that's been around for a while. But with Black Lives Matter, it's like people will look at the lesbian women who run Black Lives Matter, Patrisse Cullors, this and that. Who recruited Patrisse Cullors? Who organized Patrisse Cullors? Who inspired Patrisse Cullors? Which book did Patrisse Cullors say is like Mao's little red book, that she was inspired by, that she was giving away on college campuses or selling them? Whose book was it? It was a guy named Eric Mann. Who is Eric Mann? A left-wing Jewish guy who has explained in interviews that he was born and his mom told him about the world made up of Goyim trying to attack him. So a lot of what he's doing is racially motivated. It's just Jewish, racially motivated against other ethnic groups or using other ethnic groups in that pursuit. I'm not trying to be hateful. This is just the truth. If my race can hate his race, how come I can't say his race hates my race? If black people and white people, no, white people can only hate black people, but black people can't hate white people, right? That's what they tell you. It's like, it only goes one way. You're wrong. They can never be wrong. It's the same thing with Jewish. I'm just being honest. And it's like a lot of these black organizations, it's not hate speech to say that they were organized and manipulated by people with a certain racial outlook of the world. That's the reality of the situation. It's the same thing with Trotsky. When he went to New York City and met with a bunch of socialist publications of his ethnicity, they were enthralled with anti-Semitism. And what is anti-Semitism? What they would perceive as the hate of their ethnic group. Okay, fair. But how could you say that something's not racially or ethnically motivated when they're admitting that the big inspiration to the Bolshevik Revolution and to the overthrow of the Russian Tsar has to do with their ethnicity and them being perceived as this and that? You can't talk about it. Why? Because it's happening literally everywhere. You look at Adam Silver, who runs the NBA. Adam Silver, what can you say about the guy besides he looks like a creepier version of Mayorkas at the border. But in general, it's like he's pushing all this backwards BLM style propaganda in the NBA. Maybe it's just totally random. Maybe it's just him just being totally liberal. Sure, absolutely. But what if it's similar to Eric Mann? What if it's similar to the ideology of Leon Trotsky? It might not be, but it's not hate speech to speculate that it might be. Because if you look anywhere, you notice this pattern every single time or most of the time. And everybody says that, but it's known as hate speech when you say it. It's like, oh, there's an industry just completely destroying biblical values. Oh, let's look up this guy's Wikipedia. Oh, what do you know? He says he's trying to defile Europeans and Christians, but am I allowed to talk about it? No, that's not allowed. Okay. All right. Well, there's this new movie that's defiling Christians. Oh, I wonder who produced it. Oh, not supposed to notice that. Oh my gosh. It's like, okay, but why is there a group that polices basically conversations about one thing, but when it comes to my religion and my ethnicity, we're just supposed to sit here and be like, you know what? Let's just ruin everything that we've ever owned. Let's just make every Christian country a atheist, liberal country. Let's just, make Europe a place that doesn't look like Europe. Let's make Ireland look like the Middle East. Let's Let's make London look like a country somewhere else. Let's make Germany look different. Let's just make all of Europe just completely change. And then, we'll go into Ukraine, and then we'll fund them. And then, we'll push liberalism onto them, and we'll try to push it onto Russia and make sure that Eastern Europe is destroyed. Let's do that. Okay, let's look around the world. Is everyone else doing this? Is China doing that? Oh, no, they're not. Wait, is Japan doing that? No. Is Africa doing that? No. Is Israel doing that? No. But they want us to do it, but they don't want to do it. Okay, so am I wrong to feel like we're being a little bit bamboozled here, where it's like these values that how come other countries don't want an open border? Because an open border would destroy their country. They can't afford an open border, but ours just has to be open. Who's bankrolling this stuff? I'm not saying it's the only thing, but Marjorie Taylor Greene went up on stage and she started talking about, I think it was called HAIS. Let me look it up. HAIS immigration. And she was saying that, Marjorie was saying on the television that HAIS, this liberal immigrant, helping agency or whatever, or organization, is working with Mayorkas, or Mayorkas is working with them to flood our country with illegal immigrants, right? Have you ever looked up what HIAS is? HIAS, I'm just on their Wikipedia now. HIAS is Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. It's a Jewish American nonprofit organization that provides humanitarian aid and assistance to refugees. It was established in 1881, originally to help a large number of Russian Jewish immigrants to the United States who had left Europe to escape anti-Semitic persecution and violence. And since then, they've been flooding our country with immigrants. Mayorkas, according to Marjorie and anybody who does research, at one point was working with them, and she claims that he was still working with them somehow, directly or indirectly, during his administration. Have you ever listened to Mayorkas talk? One time someone questioned him on something. I think they accused him of saying like anti-Semitism or something. I don't even know. And he went on this huge rant of how dare them say that because he's Jewish and his parents had fled persecution. So I'm not trying to be rude, and I don't know if you're supposed to say this, but what if he was Chinese, working with a Chinese organization to flood America with refugees? Would you call it anti-Chinetic to say that he was collaborating with an organization of his ethnicity? Would it be anti-Chinetic to talk about it or notice that? What if, he was Islamic or Saudi Arabian, and he was working with a Saudi Arabian or Islamic refugee society to flood our country with refugees? Would you say it's Islamophobia to point that out? No, every right-wing publication would point that out. Why does no right-wing publication point that out with HAIS? Why are they all afraid to say it? Because that's what the Republican Party is. They don't do that. If everybody doing what he's doing, from BLM to running the sports leagues and pushing, liberalism to all this stuff, if they were all, and I'm just being honest, I'm not trying to be rude or hateful, I'm just being honest. If they were all Chinese and working with Chinese organizations, every Republican would be screaming about it on Fox News every single day. It would be the scandal of the century. It would be the scandal of our generation. It would be like, yo, our country's being infiltrated by China. Our country's being like that. Okay. Would I call that anti-Chinese? No. Would some people be offended? Sure. Would some people call it racism and stop Asian hate? Absolutely. But right-wingers would still do it. But when it's something else, you're just not supposed to talk about it. And then you got people on the right that are promoting Ukraine to Americans from a conservative perspective. I believe Zelensky's a Bolshevik. I believe he's an extension of exactly what's going on and what did go on. Others don't think that, but it is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. And in my opinion, while, I'm just going to be real with you guys. If you're trying to make it in Republican politics, what I just told you today will end your career. Like, you have no chance of running for office. If I ever tried to run for office, you would think they were nice to Donald Trump compared to what they would probably try to do. Republican media, I would never be able to work at places like Daily Wire. I would never be able. I mean, look what they did to Candace Owens. Look what they did to Tucker Carlson at Fox News. I'm pretty much never going to be able to work at any other media company. I don't really care. I'm just letting you know like why other people don't do it. Some people are in on it. Some people have ethnic or religious bias. Some people are brainwashed. Some people mean well. Some people just don't agree, and they have valid reasons. But that's a small amount of people, I would think. But for the most part, do you know how many people watch what I'm doing, listen to what I'm doing, probably tell their friends about it behind the scenes, and people besides me, because I'm not that important on a scale of like this sort of conversation. There's a lot of people who say way crazier stuff and way more often, but in general, it's like they'll lose everything. If you depend on the Republican media and political sphere for a living, your living is done at that point. Like, you're not going to be able to make money in this world. In order to make money in this world, you can't mention what I mentioned today. They won't say I'm wrong. They'll just say it's hateful, even though I'm not hateful. I don't hate anybody. I would allow any country to do what they wanted to do in their country. In my country, I'm just noticing certain things. And when it comes to other ethnicities, they're allowed to like themselves, and they're allowed to want to have a certain country that makes sense to their ethics and values, and in some cases ethnic group. That's what Israel is. That's what Russia is. That's what like every country in the world is. America, it's a little more experimental, but it wasn't always. I mean, it was an experiment, but it was an experiment from certain parts of the world until the Hart-Celler Act took that up. But besides that, it's like I don't care. And I've told people this for years. I like doing what I do. I like talking about other topics. I like doing reports on other things. I really do. But when it comes to this topic that I'm talking about here, this is the most important topic. If you don't understand half of what I said today, you're wrong. You don't understand anything. You're living a lie. If you can't comprehend what I'm trying to explain today or what I didn't understand,
But in general, you're not allowed to say that
can't believe I pulled this out, dude. This was so close. We had such a low HP, and then I scaled past everybody. Oh my gosh. Off's the goon, yo. He's gooning. He's gooning. Lucky egg Absol. That's how you play wilds. You use the early wilds, then you pivot into the later game wilds, bro. And just in case, if I had the level, I could have put in Darmanitan too, because I had him. If I had the level, he was so screwed. I would have put in Darmanitan. I'm over here power leveling, trying to put in Darmanitan. We could have turned on fire. But this was fire. Put in the stone on Entei. I was like, I need that death stone on Entei, though. Gotta make him a dark type. He gotta be dark wild, basically. We just made everything dark wild. I just found all the dark wilds and put them in. We almost had a poison angle, too. If I would have figured out an artificial comp, but, like, there's just no place to slot it. If there was a place to slide it, I would have done it. GG's, guys. Obstagoon, Overcore. I even got the dang thing. The what's the name? I'm nice at this game now. Hold on, we gotta end.
Dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it. I'm talking to myself. I don't even think it picked up. My team was so nice, though. That team was so nice. Got to end on the profile. 14 wins. Oh my gosh. Don't look at this. Look at this. First, second, third. First. We're trying. A lot of 6 and 7s. You're like, why am I so consistent? Like 6, 8. This is terrible. A 4th with the fighting comp. They look the same. Wild darks, bro. Nasty. Let's see, did we climb? We climbed. Actually, we climbed a lot. We're really close to 1,000 now. Title. The Alchemist. Actually, I want Outsider, dude. Talk about winning game rolling less than 20 times. I'm trying to put on Outsider. I want to put on Get Sokoleo Lunala. I'm coming for you, Crab Hammer.